Evening and how do to all, to quote someone in our chat. Kev, I think he's here. How do to all. I like that. It's better than my usual sign on, which is evening all. Seems to be, which is a bit of a 1950s thing as it is, to be honest with you. Danny, how are we?
I'm good, thanks, mate. I like it. It's clean. Evening all. It's not, it's not too fussy.
I might go back to it. Yeah. I don't know whether how do to all. Yeah, I know what you mean.
How do to all is not a sentence I think I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, fair play.
Kev in the chat can pull it off. I don't know whether I can. Actually, I'm going to jump straight in and say hello to the chat because there's lots of nice people preparing, but perhaps they're probably thinking, well, Black's box is having technical difficulties. I'm going to have to watch these two guys in sort of dark tones this evening. Sorry, but we are here anyway. That's something. It's quite nice to see lots of people preparing their evening sort of pasta dishes. I've seen a lot here. So Andy Martin's in the chat. He's going to take an hour to cook his pasta with cheese sauce. You, on the other hand, have a different approach. Do you want to tell the chat about your comfort food?
Oh, I think was Andy saying he's just having pasta cheese sauce. I'm lazy. I mean, I grew up on pasta. My dad just used to make me pasta, and tuna slop he used to make.
Tuna sloppy?
Tuna slop, but it was quite nice. It was like a tuna and tomato sauce with celery and stuff. Whereas, yeah, if Darcy's not in, I'll just usually be really lazy and make like pasta tuna and cheese, or pasta tuna and anchovy, which is nice with a bit of like pesto. Yeah,
a bit of tinned fish is a good stock cupboard item. So that's our tip for the evening. If you take nothing from the FPL, stock cupboard fish. That is our way. But no, it sounds great. Stories of poverty in the difficult north up there with tinned fish. So obviously it's all fresh down here, and or smoked salmon and dressed crab and all that kind of stuff. Not really, sadly enough. I haven't got any money. But yes, no. Good evening to all. I've done it again. let's just plow on, shall we? Quite an exciting. Actually, I've gone with the fireworks tonight to try and entice people in, but obviously, there's some of it outside as well. If there is a loud bang or something, it's probably going to be the various parks that surround me here. But yes, DMs in the DM. We're going to get that straight up in a minute, Danny, and we're going to try something new in a minute. So I don't know whether the crowd are going to get upset with us, but let's just share this first of all, because we're going to start with something new in a minute. The crowd might get on our backs, there's a chance. But DMs in the DMs, we're going to be talking a little bit about a new fad in town, which is their defensive midfielders and how they've changed the game, but that sort of thing. Rice cooking, defense eating. I'm a difficult customer on this one, Danny. Me talking about Declan Rice is it's too close to the bone. Obviously, it still hurts a bit.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You didn't even think about the pain that this was going to cause me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're quite difficult. Anyway, I'm not going to bang on too much. I've already given my record of the week recommendation in the chat. It's actually behind me on the couch there, Arthur Russell. But our good friend FPL Psycho in the chat. The good tension in the crowd is palatable. That's the way we roll. It's not easy in here. It's full of tension. But we're going to start with a very quick review of the week. Now, before anyone says, oh, it's because you scored reasonable points this week, it's not actually. It's because several people said, please, can you do a review of the week and tell us about your team last week and that sort of thing. We'll keep it quick so that not to upset anyone. But if you like it, tell us. And if you don't, maybe don't tell us. We'll go and we'll say some more hellos to chats in just a minute. But Danny, do you want to kick us off with your lot? How did you get on? How were things last week? Obviously, I mean, you must be really happy because you're rocking a high performing striker pair there. Everything's good, right?
I don't know about really happy. I just want to say as well, by the way, just thinking as the fireworks going off, I was a bit sad before, not to continue our ramble or anything, but I didn't even realise it was bonfire night until about half an hour ago.
Yeah,
I thought, how sad is that? Where's my wonderment and innocence gone? I used to find that bonfire night was always my favourite night of the year. How can I not even know that it's bonfire night? And it's like, anyway.
You're stuck in here with me. I mean, what the hell's happened to your life?
It's like work and now staying in and doing an FPL podcast. It's like, what's happened?
Sad git.
But yeah, I'm sad git now. I thought we're doing a quick review, aren't we? Because someone asked us last week, do we ever do team reviews, which we've never done. So we thought, why not? Because it'll kick us off into a bit of FPL talk sooner. Yeah, no, I was obviously happy. I got 86 points, which you probably can't see on the screen. It's one of those where if I'd have just done, I mean, my transfers didn't do anything, obviously, so it's difficult to be too happy. And if anything, it was my transfers were a minus because if I'd have just done the kind of logical move as well of who was my striker, Pedro to Mateta, then obviously I'd have more points. I'd have, I don't know, 90, 93 or something. But I wanted to do a bit of a restructure basically and move to 5 in midfield. Never felt really excited about Bumo and Fernandes this week with that fixture. Forest, so it was one of them where it was like just kind of swallowing the pain of Mateta and hoping that I get away with Sarr. So that was a little bit frustrating because obviously Sarr hit the post with a 1-on-1. I had a really good chance. Mateta scored. What was it? His only chance, really. If it wasn't really a chance, it was just an incredible header for a 9-pointer. Obviously sold João Pedro, who got a 9-pointer. Sold Paquetá after all these weeks, who got whatever it was, 9 points, 10 points, and sold Reinders. So it's one of them. So it's one of them where, again, if you'd just sort of done nothing, probably would have got more points. But yeah, team's looking okay. So can't complain with the green arrow.
Yeah, very difficult to predict that you were going to get stung by West Ham of all teams. So it's I really wasn't expecting that whatsoever. So I mean, I'm still fairly delighted. Do you know what the narrative shift on that one has been sort of very dogleg, very like a real heel turn there or something, because oh my god, a dancing reference. What have we become? Sorry. But yeah, that West Ham being good last week, it shocked me of all people, and I was on the verge of saying Paquetá might even potentially be dropped. Don't listen to us, fans.
No, beware of fans. There's an awful lot of narrative shifts into this week, I think. So we can have a think about that on some of the topics.
Yeah, so suddenly Nuno's a great manager, and we're going to survive quite comfortably. So that's apparently what's going to happen. Hopefully. Yes, and I'm just going to say a quick apology to FPL Psycho. I prefer to listen to pods when the hosts have done poorly. I know. We'll resolve that. Don't worry, it won't take very long.
I know. I'm totally the same, Psycho, as well. And it's do you know what? I think it's kind of one of the reasons. It's one of a few reasons, isn't it, that we never did reviews.
Yeah.
Because I always just think most of the time you kind of just skip through it, and I'm still not sure whether we should. Maybe we shouldn't, because a lot of the time when I'm watching pods, I will just sort of probably skip through it, possibly. But then some people want to see how you're doing, so I don't know, and that is genuinely one of the reasons why I've never done it before. Because I think, it's all about next week for me.
I suspect it's a bit of a settling device for most pods. They just it eases them in. That sort of thing. So I'll try my best to make you feel uncomfortable as a result. What's difficult as well is there are plenty of people here who you probably should listen to more than us as well. I can even see Focal in the chat, who's also forgotten Fireworks Night, by the way, so you're not alone.
Nice.
That one. He's got a lot of big moves actually coming up, so check out what he's up to this week as well. Let's go on to me. So this is probably the only week I need to share because I did it okay. Actually, it's quite good. So quite pleased with the one. But no, 90 points. I think what was actually interesting is the end of the week. I don't know if anyone else had this kind of experience. I feel guilty for saying it, but there's a player that you really fear and desperately want. There's always someone, right, who you don't have that you want. Maybe for you, for example, it's like, oh, you worry this week about Mateta or something like this. For me, I spent the week's highlights. We'll go into it a bit later on, and I watched Sarr, and I was like, "Oh bloody hell!" I was like, "This guy." I was like, I absolutely can't stand not owning him. Like, if Enzo scores, I don't care. I don't want him anyway. There are plenty of players like that.
Well, I text you on Monday, didn't I? About I texted you about Ndiaye going off injured, which was really annoying. By the way, he was just totally being a little pussy, which is not what I had him down for. And you were straight away like, "Is he? How bad is it? I've got exact cash for Sarr."
Yeah, it's exactly that. And we'll talk about it later. It's probably like it's the only thing that still is in there as a kind of bit of a tempter. But that goal from Ndiaye was beautiful, wasn't it? It was an absolutely lovely goal to watch. Apologies to our good friend Spencer, who might not have enjoyed that one as much as we did, but yeah, no, that was lovely. So pretty happy. It's nice to see Minte get something. I appreciate some people would have thought that the returns
outrageous.
But But okay, yeah, sure. But objectively, he's looking good, isn't he? He's in good nick, and he could easily have. He was involved in other things that could have turned to something. So I think that's a reasonable, fair return there on that one. I kind of. I suppose probably the major disappointment of the week in a way, other than Saka, because it's always difficult to kind of stomach someone who's that expensive and not getting returns and all the rest of it, and having, two big chances, etc. Is the kind of Pope situation, right? Because I just wasn't expecting that one absolutely, and arguably made two errors that led to goals in a way, right? The last one, rolling through his leg from the Bowen shot, and the first one with Paquetá could have, some keepers would maybe have been disappointed with that. So it's a bit of an awkward one, but I mean, other than that, it's weird to see. We'll come on to the Raya. I know there's been a lot of Raya chat this week, but I'm one of those weird people who actually sold him in order to get Timber. So do your worst, chat. If you think I'm an absolute novice, then that's quite understandable. But we've got Raya coverage between us, so we're absolutely fine on that one. Anyway, that was the review. Leave your reviews. If you don't want to see it again, that's fine. We can never do it again.
No, we can't do that. You see, now we have to do reviews until we have a really bad week. Otherwise, everyone will think we're twats.
Oh, that's true. Maybe we are. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to one quick thing though before we move on from Abu Yakub. I don't know. Is the answer to that one, Yakub. I still don't look at it. I mean, I probably have seen it, but I don't. It's just not part of my game at this point in the season generally anyway. So we could do that, but we'll figure that out later. For the first half of the season, who cares? Don't think about it particularly. It's not a part of our interest, I would say. Maybe I'm wrong. Quick update on this. People, the chat are very keen to see bad weeks. So if we can have a bad week this week to restore balance, to be all sort of, I would say BBC about it, but that leads us in a very different direction. An impartial situation, so we can perhaps have a bad week first before we move on. Now, good and bad news here. So I should say we've got Luke Shaw in our mini league, and we've also got another Manchester United reference here, John O'Shea, who's leapt in and joined the mini league and gone straight to the top. Now, we were debating this before we came on. I know there are very different attitudes about how to deal with this. John has just slipped on in. Zach, Steve, Benji, and John on that leaderboard there are probably, pretty upset at this point in time. But he's jumped to the top, so congratulations to John O'Shea, and he's gone to the top with FC Barcelona. And Zach Farnell pushed into second, and some familiar names, except for Benji Yag, who I've never seen before, 15 grown men. He scored 104 points. He bench boosted and took a -4. So it was quite an eventful week for him. So I selected someone different for player of the week, Elliot Auxent on Social Strikers, 103. 103 with a regular team score. You should have seen it, by the way. I think he only had one person who didn't return. It was absolutely ridiculous. I think Semenyo might have been the only player he didn't.
This isn't helping the chat.
He didn't have the chat are not helpful at all. In fact, Zach Farnell, who's in, he's got he was looking forward to coming in here. More importantly, he loves the pod anyway. Stick with us, Zach. We'll topple John O'Shea together. John O'Shea will be more the Sunderland John O'Shea and less the Manchester United John O'Shea. Is that a fair reference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Did Wes Brown and John O'Shea play for Sunderland at the same time?
Yeah, they did actually. I think Spencer could tell us otherwise. But yeah, we're gonna close the league, aren't we? Like Gameweek 19 or something to make it fair, or something like that.
Soon enough, yeah. What is it? It's Gameweek 11 this week. So I think there's two options, and if the chat could let us know what they think, I reckon we either close it at sort of halfway, which I assume is about Christmas, so before Gameweek 19, or we do it just ahead of the whole AFCON scramble. So I think those are probably the two obvious windows. So let us know what you think, and then for the rest of the season, you can fight it out like rats in a barrel. Yeah. not a very glamorous image, but what can you do? Zach in the chat, by the way, who's number 2 at the moment. Close it in a week, -1 week. Come on, Zach. That's not fair. Great. Okay. Well, we're going to go straight on. I'm going to try to be good at timekeeping this week, which I will fail at as usual. I've got a bit of a throat issue going on here, but Danny has forced me, chained me to my desk, and made me do the podding because he's sort of desperate to make money out of me, or not money.
Money?
Not money, definitely not money. We don't make any money, but to do this stuff. Anyway,
I had to be pretty brutal with you, didn't I, this week? I was like, no, just by the way, Rich, you're never missing a pod. Just through.
I'm not allowed to be ill. This is the worst kind of work. It's like working for an oligarch or something.
The chat can tell us that we're on my side here. I had shocking flu last week. I was a mess last week, but yeah, can't
honey and lemon going on here. Okay, so straight into the chat. Dilemmas this week. Thank you again for sending things in. You do help make this what it is. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad, but you help make it what it is by sending in some great questions, some of which I remember who asked it. I know Raya was a reference from Adam from Above Average. If you haven't checked out that debate, I would say debate. I don't think Harry had much of a debate. If anyone's seen that discussion on the Above Average podcast where Harry guested this week, he was being debated at, perhaps. That was good fun anyway. We quite enjoyed that. So there's that side of things. You can work out whether we're Team Sistine Chapel or Team, what is it? Team Ceiling? No, Team
Carpet layer.
Carpet, yeah, something like that. Later on, but all of these questions here, anyway. Let's go back to this. Are sort of in some way Arsenal related, but they also bring in a couple of interesting debates about defensive midfielders, about restructuring, about the value of picks like Raya. We've got the references there to the fixture pile up over Christmas. So all of these things are the kind of things that if you're not thinking about, perhaps you should start to, perhaps over the international break, that sort of thing. So I'm going to kick off with this one, Danny, because you do have the informed Gyökeres in your team, but unless he's going to make a unlikely recovery, he's a bit of a problem for you this week. So is it worth dead ending the Gyökeres spot? So a lot of people deciding whether to get rid. Would you hold the funds by reverting to Saka? I say reverting to Saka, to move to Saka, or to spread with value options like Thiago and Rice and that sort of thing. So there were lots of different people who asked a version thereof of this question. But why don't you start by just telling us your initial thoughts about Gyökeres and the dilemma that you face? I mean, is it something that you've wandered through in your head yourself?
Are we going to treat? I suppose we can treat these first two questions as the same, but also as separate in a way. I suppose. So I suppose we'll try and
absolutely.
They can be separate. I suppose.
Yeah.
The Gyökeres thing. I mean, it's obviously. I don't want to start with it's team dependent, but it is a little bit. Because there's a big one for me, which is just like how many transfers have you got? First of all, if you're thinking about swapping to Saka or something like that, I've only got one transfer, so it isn't really an option for me at the moment in terms of.
I didn't realise you had one.
Yeah, I only have one transfer. By the way, like I've seen a lot of separate people say. This week, and even on different pods, people saying things like, "Oh yeah, as a Saka owner, I'm gutted that Gyökeres is injured because everyone's going to go to Saka now." And I just think, no, you're not. And stop and stop. I mean, it's so easy to. I mean, and I don't mean that to it because I know I was joking with like people like Josh and stuff. I've seen it on loads of pods. Loads of people say the same thing. It's one of these easy sort of psychological things that we can't help but not realize it's happening because it's easy to say after the fact, isn't it? But when I was watching Gyökeres on Saturday, I was really thinking, oh, well, this is such a big boost to someone who isn't necessarily going to Saka anytime soon, or at least in the next couple of weeks. I've held Gyökeres for all this time, and suddenly I'm thinking, wow, this guy's the best player on the pitch. This is what I've wanted to see from Gyökeres all this time. Whether that means it was going to stay like that or not, but it doesn't really matter. You can only work with what you've got, and he looked far better, didn't he? And I know it was only against Burnley or whatever. But that's all you need. Sometimes it's just a bit of that sort of confidence and decision making because it all did look a bit different for Gyökeres. The decision making, the confidence, the being on the ball at the right times, and all that sort of stuff. So I was thinking, oof. And I would imagine a lot of Saka owners are thinking, okay, great, I've got Saka, but damn, I'm a bit worried because in the next few weeks it could just go either way because they're both great picks, really. So it's obviously a little bit worrying. So it's very easy to say after Gyökeres is then injured now and like, oh, I've got it now, everyone's going to have Saka. Really, you're probably a little bit more worried if both of them were fit. That's how I'd be thinking. So yeah, I mean, the obvious question is how long is he injured for? It sounds like I'm working off the basis that it isn't too bad. I mean, he obviously stayed on the pitch, and then reported a kind of issue, and it seems to there's some extent of it being precautionary. There's sort of rumours that it might not be too bad, but I don't think anyone really knows. I think that's probably mostly clickbait because I don't think he's had the test yet. So it could be out for longer, and in which case this conversation completely changes. But I'm obviously working on the basis that he could or would hope that he's back for Spurs. I mean, there's another interesting point here. I mean, Zoff was mentioning. Zoff said to us that talking in the chat that the Sweden games are very important. By the way, I haven't looked into this myself. It was just in the chat, and that's obviously Sweden already without Isak, so they will desperately want. By the way, I didn't even realise that Graham Potter was a Sweden manager either. I mean, that's how obviously out of touch I am with these things.
Did you see him do his interviews in Swedish as well?
Did he? Nice.
Yeah.
Fair
play.
Like
not most of it anyway. Yeah, the initial kind of but it was pretty impressive. I think he's married to a Swede, isn't he?
Okay, right, nice. Yeah, so there's an element of that's obviously difficult from Arsenal's point of view. I mean, it'll be good because Potter's probably got some kind of relationship, so they'll have a dialogue and they probably know what it's like and what they're likely to do. But obviously, Arsenal will need and want him to have the rest, regardless of how long he's out for. So they're going to need to sort of say that it's quite serious. At the same time, if it is serious, how serious can it be that you then play him in Spurs straight after that international break? It's a bit of a tricky one. You know what I mean? But anyway, obviously, I would imagine they want him back as soon as possible. I would hope that he's back for Spurs. He potentially only misses this week, and I think that if that's right, he's a really good pick for the long term. I still think. I mean, you see a lot of people who sort of blanket say, "Oh, the minutes drop because Havertz will be back," and I just think that's mostly rubbish. Still, I think that's just kind of OTT, and it's not. It's like anything. Most of the players can be replaced by someone or have someone who can play in their position, but they won't because the person in that position is the best, and Gyökeres is far and away the best number 9. So I'm not worried about rotation in that sense. I'm just worried about when he's going to be back. So, and then the other part of the sort of the equation is, again, what your team looks like and your midfielders and how much faith you want to put in the midfielders, because you're making a bet, aren't you? I mean, Saka, I look at it as well, and I don't know about you. I mean, you've got Saka, so it's slightly different for you, but there are an awful lot of midfielders that I want right now that we're going to talk about in a minute, and an awful lot that I want that I've already got. And so it's actually quite nice. Again, it's a little bit worrying because I am scared of Saka, by the way. So I also need to say that this is also a problem. I'm scared of him, but I don't have 2 transfers. I'm not hitting him in, so it's just not in the equation for me at the moment. So Saka is great, but I do ultimately like the structure whereby Gyökeres is just taking up a striker spot. Yes, there is Mateta there as well. As there are other strikers, but he's taking up a striker spot. When we talk about the midfielders shortly, there's just a hell of a lot that I really like, and and Gyökeres is still cheaper than Saka as well. So yeah, that's it really. But I'm kind of low key thinking, especially based on that first half from Gyökeres, I'm low key thinking he might be really, really good as a pick. And we're not. I do expect Saka to get better. By the way, I do expect Saka to get a lot better. I think he's just his numbers are picking up, and he is Saka. Saka is Saka. But I still think that if you do have that number 9 at Arsenal, who is a goal scorer, and if he is really good, and he's always in that position, especially even more so with the kind of the set pieces that we see at the moment, and just like his goal that he got on the weekend, he's always the one who's right in the 6-yard box, hassling people. He's built like a brick shithouse. He can outstrip, muscle people. He's the one who's always there and more likely to be there than Saka, on the end of those sort of set pieces and second headers and second balls and that sort of stuff. So he could be a great pick. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment, Gyökeres.
Can I ask? I know this is hypothetical and maybe it's a bit tedious to deal in those, but let's just say I gifted you another transfer or 2. how different would your decision be in this situation? Is it led by the fact that, well, I mean, there are two things that spring to mind for you. It's not just his form. By the way, that the kind of weight of his pass, I think, was something that I was really noticing, which is good from him, his point of view, and the Saka perspective for them playing together. We can talk a bit about Marino as well later on, maybe. But yeah, I was just going to ask, if you had the 2 or 3 moves, and if you'd still had 3 strikers up front, etc., is it completely context driven here? Does that make a significant difference to you, or is it just that you really, really believe in Gyökeres in comparison to perhaps the crowd?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, because obviously that is important. Like I said, that's part of my decision at the moment, and why I'm kind of justifying it that way a lot. And the answer is I don't know really. I think I'd be tempted to still wait a week, but I'd certainly be tempted to get Saka. I'd certainly be tempted to make that move, because it's a little bit scary this week. But as I say, when we look at our teams and our teams in a bit, when we talk about the sort of players that we're wanting to target, that would basically cause me some serious headaches in terms of the coming weeks of players to get rid of and players that I want instead. So it'd be making a big commitment. And if I'm thinking that really I've just got to get through 1 week, potentially, it's what I'm hoping for, but it might not be. It might be more. Potentially 1 week, and even so, the next game is Spurs. It's not like it's a fantastic fixture. It's a derby. Really, it's after that. It's after 2 weeks, really, that you want to make sure. But it's quite a big commitment. It would change all of my plans in terms of the midfielders. So I don't know, because it also, for me, and probably for a lot of people, it means selling a good player. I think most of the midfielders that we're sort of talking about, or that we're interested in, most, not all, but have either got a really good fixture this week, or they get really good fixtures from next week onwards.
Yeah, I'm. By the way, I apologise to the chat if they can hear, because I think Danny and I have both got fireworks going on at the same time. I might be wrong.
That's just going off.
It's like I can't work out whether it's there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we will carry. I did say there would be fireworks in here. Yeah, I think it is quite an interesting question, because it's so first of all, I agree with you. I mean, Gyökeres looked an awful lot better. I know that some people in the chat are throwing the usual pelters about he's just a fridge, was playing Burnley, don't take any notice, etc. But let's be honest, if he'd continued in the same vein in the second half, reached 90 minutes, blah blah blah, no one's going to be selling him, are they? Let's be honest with you. Everyone would have been happy this week, and probably would have kept into the Tottenham fixture. We don't know, but that seemed pretty likely. And I mean, perhaps it's because I've got relatively low team value in comparison to you or a few others. Sirens now, it's just all kicking off. How much that extra kind of million or so would do. So in my context, I mean, thankfully, Minte looks all right now, but I wasn't that confident about that. And the idea of having that extra, million or so, where I could have had the option of, whether it be Sar or the kind of flavors of this week, people were talking about Szoboszlai, or was Gakpo the week before. That sort of level of pick I could have reached quite easily then, or bumped up an Anderson to a Van Dijk or whatever it might be. So those kind of routes would have been open. So I definitely understand holding that. I think kind of linked to that second question a little bit as well. I if you have ridded the bench boost, it is very hard now. I think very difficult to argue against really reducing one of those roles to nothing, just because the temptations are going to be there for all to see, to spread that money into some quite interesting, whether it be playing 4 at the back, because you can, let's say you can add an extra Arsenal defender or a Van Dijk or whatever it might be, or to go for one of these additional good midfielders that we might be talking about this evening. It would be highly tempting. So I think, I don't know, I think it's very persuasive to the point of I would struggle to argue at all with not just getting rid of one of those striker spots. So if you have a couple of transfers, I think that and you don't have a dead spot up top, it would be very difficult to ignore that option. I don't know what you think. You've already done it, haven't you? You've got a dud striker.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this, just before as well, just when I look at the questions, and obviously there's an element of kind of your own personal approach to the game. I've always had a relatively weak bench. I mean, I'm not going to say better. I've changed that slightly for whatever reason. In the last couple of years, I've had a slightly stronger bench. I mean, this time last year I wildcarded, didn't I, into double Ipswich 4.0 centre backs, and nobody in order to kind of get the right structure that I wanted at that time. Palmer and that sort of thing. So it depends on who you want to get in and what you think, how you foresee future picks and how much you think it might be stretched. I think at the moment I see it as actually probably there is a lot of stretch there in the potential, because you write off Haaland, who's whatever close to 15 million, and immediately you want to look at Saka or Gyok, or you want to look at Bruno Fernandes or Palmer potentially coming back. You've got to be aware of these things. Brian and Burmo, I don't know, players that I'm just thinking of, and this is never mind the ones who are slightly less but still expensive, like your Sars and Matetas and that sort of stuff. There's quite a lot, and obviously expensive keepers and defenders. There's quite a lot of sort of stretch around at the moment. Also, I was thinking one of the reasons that I like to sort of put most of my money into the 11. I mean, I think 14 as a squad is pretty ample. That's just kind of my approach. But another reason for that is because I pick very robust players. That's what I try to do. I pick players who I think have got really good minutes and they're really robust, etc., etc. So other people might not, and they might want to take a different approach, and they might want to take a risk on a few players. And if you've got the sort of player, if you're looking at a Gakpo or someone, or I don't know, I don't even have them on my horizon, so I can't even think of the players who are like slight rotation risks or something, or you've got Foden or something like that, and you want these sort of players. Then it's a bit different. Maybe you do want a deeper bench. It's a very rare event for me personally that I'm ever going to need 3 subs, or at least I'll sort of bet that I'm willing to make that I won't.
Yeah, if I can just come in on that very quickly, I do think one thing that is a bit different to this, this season, that's and people have almost ignored it because it's been there for most of the season. They're quite happy now. Is that the quality of £4 million defender options is really good? It's really high. There are arguably, I mean, off the top of my head, there are 3 or 4 that you would quite happy having your team in one role or another. So I think having a dud defender, I know this should be shockingly obvious to people by now, would be a totally unacceptable thing to do at this time. It would be ridiculous to have a dud defender in this context where you've got Mukiele, who's potentially maybe a top sort of 20 pick in the game for defenders anyway, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It would be fairly ridiculous not to be able to utilize that. Whereas having someone like a Gui or a Krupi is perfectly fine in the context of having those 5 excellent.
Yeah, I mean, I would say on top of that, because I agree, but I would say that when you're talking about, say, a Gui, you're writing off a whole player. So you've got 14 players, and if one of your defenders, pretty much for all of us, is one of those 4.0s. I mean, some people have got Mukiele. Most probably like me have got a Leeds 4.0 or some other, but they're all decent picks, but they're still light. There's not really, there aren't many weeks at all. Well, there are a few, I suppose. You think about Leeds at home. It's hard to say this when someone like Rodon's just got 13 points, but I think generally that's I think we're going to see a little bit more of a regression to the mean as well, a little bit with teams.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
You know what I mean? With not just with these outrageous goals and performances, but also the teams like your Burnleys and certainly Sunderland, I would think to some extent, and Leeds as well, who just seem to get hammered by Brighton. And suddenly when you see those sort of hammerings, it does feel quite light when you're looking at your second bench is like a Leeds defender or a Sunderland defender. You don't want them actually playing, but it is still there as sort of, it's only really, you shouldn't, again, if you've got very robust picks, and I know we're getting to rotation season, but we'll talk about rotation in a minute. I think for most picks, even when the fixtures are congested, they're still going to get some minutes. I mean, that's the way I see it. You're going to be, but at the same time, you factor in, if you do get injuries and stuff, it's nice. I suppose that's the other thing. You do get injuries or whatever, suspensions. It's nice to not have to make a transfer. It's pretty significant, these sort of things. So again, it's about your personal approach. And you've got those really solid bench players that allows you to roll another transfer or, change your path or have a restructure rather than just making an instant transfer. It's absolutely good to have solid bench. It's just not really tends to be my approach.
Yeah, if I can come in on that, I do think this is, again, to a lot of our listeners, this will be part of their logic as well. But I do think it's an underestimated. You've often said, paraphrasing you here, but if you can roll, essentially, there is an element of truth to that anyway. But to be in a position, I mean, I had that situation, as you say, on Monday, where I thought Ndiaye, maybe he's injured, Sarr, etc. That would be the obvious move and that sort of thing. And would I have done that this week? Probably, because I really like the player and that sort of thing. But for your squad to be in a situation where you have a significant injury to a player that you really rely on some level and still not have to make a move, that's an incredibly positive, robust situation to be in. So, for example, Danny's team will come up later on. But I'm guessing part of your logic, and we'll move on to other picks in a minute, by the way, with Gyok potentially being a hold until things clear up and until you can make two moves, is that, we've got these sturdy DEFCON guys who, like an Anderson or a Senesi this week, who are quite hard to split anyway. And that's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing, to say that, because again, I'm in this position this week where I'm say, for example, I've got Gyok and I'm probably not going to sell him this week. I don't think at the moment. That's not the plan at the moment. So therefore, I may have to play, for example, Anderson and Senesi, which isn't great, to be honest, on paper. Isn't great at all. But so that is where, a better bench would come in. But I also think with someone like Gui at 4.2 or whatever he is now, you save so much money. Ultimately, I want to be working towards actually improving potentially that 13th or 12th player, should I say? Because you've got a bit more money and you can then not just spend it on the 11, but spend it on the 12 or the 13. Because there were so many,
like the Anderson spot, for example.
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. If you're working towards bringing in a Van Dijk or an Arsenal defender or someone that you feel very happy with playing every week, suddenly you've upgraded your bench essentially because whatever it is, Senesi or so on moves to kind of regular first bench, whatever it may be. So I think that's the way I'm seeing it. Actually, I should have said that from the start, but I hadn't thought about it until now. Is that yes, I love the Gui spot, but not just because it's the money in 11. It's actually the money in the 12 to the 13.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I want to just pick up before we kind of not move on exactly, but the questions. I know this is danger in being too specific, and I'm going to try and avoid being too specific here. But there are a number of Arsenal picks kind of mentioned in these questions, so it would be kind of it would be remiss rather not to just pick up on one or two issues here. First of all, you talked about Saka a little bit there. I mean, there's been a fair amount of negativity, I would say, from people, from owners particularly, over the course of the week. Do you see that? Obviously his goal involvement is relatively low for a player of his stature, missing some big chances, etc. Numbers perhaps up until this point not being perhaps as much as people would hoped. I mean, what do you think? Should owners be immediately considering his future in their team, do you think, or is it someone that you'd
say Saka?
Yeah, Saka, sorry.
No, I mean, no is the short answer for me. He's just too good. We've seen this so many times over the years when he's gone through spells, and he was injured for a bit, and he still looks great. The fact that he's getting into positions and still looks as good as ever. He's not. I don't really see him as a confidence player as well either. He's a very resilient individual who's already gone through loads of things in life and missed crucial penalties for his country and everything else. I mean, he doesn't strike me as that sort of player. He doesn't strike me as a like I can't think of the word, but almost unpredictable. He's very predictable in his performances, and he's just so quality that I wouldn't be worried at all. I'm actually worried as a non-owner. So I think it's probably just a matter of time, and it could even be this weekend. So not good.
I think if anything, I was a little disappointed in a sense that with Gyok now picking up an injury, there were signs there. I know people can say what they like, but them stepping up the kind of transitional play and Gyok kind of linking the play a bit more effectively, and Saka kind of moving towards sort of cut-in territory, etc. I don't know. It was looking pretty exciting for both, to be honest with you. I mean, I know lots of people on Wildcard 6 had both and could potentially have really hauled in that game, because obviously a lot of people in our kind of line of interest were going for double defense and that sort of thing. So it could have been a huge week, but obviously wasn't. So yeah, I don't know. I think people getting excited who didn't, who had dumped Gyökeres or perhaps were are annoyed that people were going to move to Saka, etc. I don't know whether I really see it. I think there's an interrelationship there. But actually, just very quickly on that, I mean, you can obviously say what you will with this comment, but a lot of people talking about Marino as well. I'm going to get him in a draft league, so it's a bit different for me because I'm bottom of it, so I can pick whoever I like. But does that change anything for you? I mean, obviously it's only a week anyway, probably, isn't it? Does it not make any difference, Marino being up there?
I don't know really. I never really know. I don't really, I've never really sort of studied Marino long enough, other than just to watch the fact that he scores every single time he plays, and he's incredible with his head, and he's a great squad player, and it's hilariously predictable, really, how good he is. But I'm not interested in him because he's too short-term a pick. I mean, if Gyökeres was out for a very long time, then that might be slightly different. But he's someone who, again, someone like Havertz would be a threat to the minutes, whereas I don't think he is with Gyökeres. But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's so easy how these narratives, how easily it can change. I mean, I know it's ifs and buts, which is all nonsense, but Saka buries those two chances and they both walk away with 16 points each. And then everyone's double defense is thinking, oh my God, I'm committed to these 6 pointers, and everyone's panicking,
And that would have been terrific for the pod, so that is annoying on multiple reasons, really. By the way, our good friend Stu in the chat is trying to goad us, I think, here by saying things like this. Rice is a better asset than Saka. I guess we should come to that. I'm just going to bring up a different graphic here because people are talking about him a lot this week. Obviously, I will try and stay quiet because, as far as I'm concerned, he's a no good Nick Turncoat. No, I'm really joking. Good luck to him. But we do have some graph stuff here on the screen. So if you're someone who is doing the audio, we're just showing what do you call it? This is. There is a name for this, isn't there? Anyway, but there is a good graphic which shows key passes, duels, all that kind of stuff that you might get from presumably FPRef, someone like that. But it just shows his progression as a player over time, and then it's changed quite significantly because at West Ham he's required to do a lot of dueling, winning possession, etc. Whereas here he's more involved in forward passes, key passes, and carrying. So. Do you like what you see? Is he part of your plans? I don't know. It's quite hard to say, isn't it? Because you're not selling Gyökeres, so I guess not. But...
Yeah, I mean, no, he's not at the moment. I'm not there with Rice, but it is the first time ever you're having to sort of look at this stuff and think about it. I mean, if there were fewer midfielders to choose from, that would probably be different. I might be thinking about it. I don't. In another world with different money needed and players and so on, then possibly. But it is quite hilarious because I don't know, like we're seeing Rice here is developing to the sort of the player that he probably prefers to be and wants to be. He doesn't, he always said, I think, that 6 is not his favourite position. He prefers to play as a sort of 8, basically. And I've never really studied the player, so I'm not going to pretend to know. I mean, I've obviously watched him a lot, and he's a sensational player, but I'm not going to pretend to have some kind of deep insight into the kind of tactical stuff that's going on there. But you've got that solid base of Zubimendi now, haven't you, I guess, and the whole defence and the team and the structure and everything. And Rice is just showing that he's obviously got a bit more license. He's doing a lot more ball carrying, and it's the set piece stuff. His set pieces are brilliant. They have loads of set pieces. He takes them all. I mean, he's just gonna get points, and that is pretty significant. I mean, again, you're talking about a player who is never going to get rotated, a proper 90-minute player. I was going to say, I don't think he even gets booked much, for example. He's just a really solid, kind of robust player.
Yeah, not much.
Look at his points. I'm just looking now, and it's like 6, 4, 1, 3, 9, 11, 3, 7, 13. How long is it going to go on? Because if I think it's probably pretty reasonable to expect that it could continue in a very, very similar way, which is very, very good. But it's so hard with the Arsenal picks, isn't it, to have him as amongst the three that you think are the best three. I'm not there in thinking that.
No, I mean, just on that, by the way, because, okay, so I'm not going to criticize anyone for switching around Arsenal assets because I've done it fairly recently. As you know, I had 4 transfers a couple of weeks ago. Switched Raya to get Timber and Gyok Rice to get Saka, but there was a context behind that, which is freeing up the dead spot. Sorry, ending a dead spot. Whatever I'm talking about. And moving some money around, etc. So it's not particularly about whether I liked Gyökeres or Raya, which we'll come to in a minute. But the truth is, I don't know. I think we could do this. We could do this every week, right? You know, we could say, "Oh, this week it's I liked." We did it the other week. Calafiore suddenly looks more adventurous than Timber in a given week, etc. And something like that. I think the reality is you have to go with the logic and the metrics that you like to use in making your decisions as a player. I mean, so where I am at the moment with only one free transfer, Timber, Saka, and Gabriel, I've no interest in switching them at all. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm just going to pick up on this. The backlash against, I mean, maybe it's only amongst certain circles against Timber recently. I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. You must be watching a completely different game to me. Calafiore is great. Yeah, no argument against him. There might be, if Saka got injured, there's a chance that he might come in. It's possible. But Timber still looks incredible to me. It's just robust, 90 minutes. He's relying on him. He needs him. He looks great. He is still in the box at corners, whoever said that. Just going to pick up on that as well. So really, really don't see it. I think he's still a terrific pick. I wouldn't be put off getting him at all. Yes, he's done 6 and 6, and maybe you're disappointed with that and you wanted more, but I mean, that's fine by me. He's got the potential to go much higher, and I'm happy with him. So I really don't see that, but a bit defensive, aren't I there, actually? but yeah, there's nothing wrong. Yeah, but just on the Rice thing, I wouldn't be switching things around terrifically. If it's some sort of enabler to make your whole squad better, it's perfectly fine. He's a robust pick. Gets, as Danny says, he never misses a game. I think that, by the way, is one thing that I will say that people don't tend to mention. He always turns up. He almost never got injured at West Ham. He's just an incredible fitness freak. And by the way, people forget he was a central defender. He started out as a central defender. I think people forget this. He's an incredible player when you think about that. He's all of his first season or two was as a central defender, and then he transitioned. So,
and these things add up, like you say, that people don't necessarily value or sort of think about as much, because also, first of all, his performance level never really drops. That's a pretty amazing thing to say about anyone. That's actually a ridiculous thing to say about anyone, and not really something I've thought about before in relation to FPL. If you think about like those sort of, I know it's just little add-ons, but when you think, this is why Rice sort of pulls himself up as being, he has to do all these things to sort of emerge as this pick, because now he's added up. Now obviously it's Arsenal and set pieces and this slightly more advanced, and that's when you add that to, or if you had a bar chart of like team performance consistency, Arsenal would be top. They'd be close to 100. Individual performance consistency would be close to 100. Hardly any players in the league, basically, pretty much, like the odd aberration, but basically pretty much operate at their best performance level every game. And Declan Rice is one of them, which is an absurd thing. It's incredibly valuable. And he never gets injured, like you say. And he always plays 90 minutes. And he's kind of good, I think, in terms of disciplinary stuff. It's an amazing number of boxes to tick, and that's why it is. It is one of those sort of leave him there players. It's an amazing thing to say about a player that makes them so valuable. And also, obviously, again, if you just imagine hypothetically a moment, and we just never have to be a little bit prepared for these things, but it could just be a few weeks before Palmer is back. And Palmer, I know people say, "Oh, he's crap. He's not scored in 20. It's a load of rubbish, obviously, because he's an incredible player. And we just hope that I just hope he comes back fully fit, because he's been carrying an injury. So if this rest does what it should do for Palmer, and he comes back fully fit, then he's going to be back to being top 3 best FPL picks in the game. I've not even got any doubts about that, as long as he's fully fit. But that's another thing where if you suddenly introduce a player like that, 10 million, or so on, and amongst all the other players, then maybe suddenly a Rice as an Arsenal pick is much more viable because as well, we're perhaps seeing that their other picks in terms of their style of play maybe don't have the same ceiling anymore. I mean, I'm not sure that's the case, but you know what I mean in terms of the Gyökeres and Sakas. Maybe there is a lot more of sort of goals being spread around in the defence and the game state. I mean, on the weekend they went 2-0 up, and after about half an hour, that was it. It's just game over.
Yeah.
Not interested after that in scoring more goals.
I think a really good quandary at the moment would be, if you had sufficient amount of moves to compare someone like a Rice and a Calafiore. I think that would be quite an interesting one, because obviously Rice is someone who, metronome in terms of minutes, so I would expect he'd be absolutely fine, etc. Whereas Calafiore doesn't seem to require those midweeks off, and he's getting them at the moment, and they're managing it pretty well. And yeah, he looks great, but I don't know that one. I'd still have that lingering doubt, whereas I don't really have that quite so much with Timber.
Yeah,
I understand.
I'm totally with you. While we're on the Timber point, I'm totally with you. I totally agree. I just think you see a lot of narratives at the moment that are so swingy from week to week because there's so many picks and people are struggling and people just want to find the next one. And don't get me wrong, Calafiore is a great pick, but I still think Timber is better at the moment. As you say, just pretty much because he's just so unbelievably central and pivotal to that team, and he's very robust, like you say. He just looks so. I mean, he's so relentless. His minutes wise looks sensational, and he's still very, very attacking. I feel like us non-owners have dodged a bullet so far. But yeah, I think we'll talk about that in relation to Raya. Yeah. If you want to talk quickly about Raya.
Yeah. No, that would be a good shout. So yeah, just going to move on from this Rice image. I should say as well, I mean, it's worth doing some digging, because you'll find out whatever you want to, in a sense, to justify your, he doesn't shoot very much, for example, and you could pick up on that. And yes, but then you've got the set piece quality and so on. So there's definitely more to dig into there. So we won't put you off that at all. Yeah, the Raya debate. I mean, hats off. It has to be said to above average for putting this in everyone's minds this week. That's the sign of good content, I suppose. One way or another, it's that we're all talking about it one way or another. So well done to them, in a sense. So are you a Renaissance artist, or are you a grubby little floor sweeper?
Yeah, I mean. Neither. Although I'm always going for this. I'm always going for the ceiling. I'm always trying to paint the Sistine Chapel, or whatever you want to say. I mean, I was trying to think back. I was speaking to Luke like a couple of weeks ago. I think I was speaking to him about Reinders and his minutes and so on. And Luke sort of just said to me at the end, because he was on his wild card or whatever, and he was probably just putting feelers out there for different stuff. And he said, would you go Pope and Ndiaye, or Raya and Minter? And I said straight away, I'd go Pope and Ndiaye. Just without thinking, just kind of my kind of gut feel response. And Luke didn't, in the end he went for Raya and Minter. And I messaged him the other day saying, I was been on my mind, that, Luke, and I'm really glad that you went the way you did, because obviously you're getting a lot more points so far. And I said that, pretty much the only reason, I probably should have given it more context at the time, but the only reason really that I made that I said that I would go Pope and whoever it was, Ndiaye, because I think ultimately I would have rather had Timber, for example, as the pick in the Arsenal defence. That's it. That's why I'm answering that question like that, because if it's on wild card or starting from afresh, that's certainly what I thought at the time, and so I'm basically what I think now, probably. But I think less so now, and we'll maybe discuss why in a second. I think it's closer now. Obviously, I think the idea of I do hate the discussion of him being a good or bad pick. It winds me up a little bit, and I've been talking to Zoff this week, and it's wound him up a little bit as well, because it isn't a conversation of is he a good or bad pick. It's just a bit of a silly thing to say. I understand it, because I'm certainly one for the hyperbole and the sort of black and white, and I like to do that. I do that on purpose, A, to create discussion, and B, because it's usually how part of my decision process about being dead set on something. And I was, and again, maybe less so, but still set on this idea that I think ultimately over the season, what's more likely to win the game is probably a Pope and a Timber. I think I feel.
Yeah.
But I think it's a complex decision, and it isn't black and white because, and just as Harry sort of tweeted afterwards in terms of what he wanted to say is right as well. In that, again, even when I've looked multiple times at maybe making that switch, or when I had more transfers, I had 3 or 4, and I was looking into that and thinking ahead and like, what's that going to look like? Because I want to make that move maybe at some point because I feel like I want to get that in place for the season long. But whenever I look at that move and that switch, there's still multiple times where I'm going, oh, hang on a minute, that means I've got a bench. For example, I don't know, whatever it is, Senesi against West Ham or Lacroix against Brighton or Brentford or whatever it is at home. I've got really good defenders and really good picks that you're then going to have to bench, for example, or it's difficult to fit in. Because that's obviously the thing with Raya is you just play him every week. And yeah, it's not ideal. And hopefully he can get more than 6 points, although he's pretty much, he's not got much of a ceiling. But you play him every week and then you do have room for these other defenders that are ultimately really, really good. I mean, look at the top 20 point scorers. Look at the top 10 point scorers that we've talked about and we'll probably talk about later. You do have that room to get these DEFCON guys. It is about that DEFCON. These guys who have got really good defences and can get DEFCON. So we're talking serious points there. I mean, Lacroix this week normally is really good for bonus, but he actually didn't get any bonus this week, but he still gets an 8-pointer. Obviously, Guay got a 10-pointer, but there are some, and it depends. This discussion would depend on what teams are out there and the DEFCON and who you might play in defence instead, because there might not be enough good teams, and then it's just a nailed on. It's much less of a debate that I would want Timber to take up a defender's spot. But at the moment, for example, I look at it and I've got maybe you look at a typical team and say something like Senesi and Anderson. Senesi and Anderson rotate incredibly well for the next 20 weeks. So that's really nice. So then you've got 2 defenders who are individually DEFCON monsters for their team in pretty good defensive teams. And by the way, I think every time I've started Anderson this season, he's got me points as clean sheets or whatever, and even an assist. Similar with Senesi. So you've then got a really solid spot in a Senesi or an Anderson where you can rotate DEFCON defenders and clean sheet defenders and get you an awful lot of points. And then a Palace is a really significant team because they're so incredible defensively. And I mean, if you had a Munoz, for example, there's no question. You play him every single week. Yeah. And that obviously mitigates much of that discussion in terms of a Timber versus a Raya. And even if it is Lacroix or Guay or Richards, I mean, especially, these are guys who can very easily get 8 to 10 pointers, and you can pick the fixtures for them. They're really solid teams to rely on. And then you've just got Raya playing every week and getting 6 pointers. This all of this does, and it's gone Raya's way the last few weeks, by the way. Now I know that Timber can just explode at any point, for example, and Calafiori. I know they're really good picks, and it could easily happen. And I'm kind of worried to an extent. But you see what I mean? It's getting those DEFCON guys in. I know it's probably really obvious. The other thing I want to mention is, part of that discussion for me in terms of the goalkeepers and my response to Luke, for example, was my confidence, and it probably still is, but this is a discussion, in, for example, Nick Pope and who that other goalkeeper is. Because, yes, I still think he is, even when it's bad, he's pretty good, and this is why he's so good. I mean, he conceded 3 goals this weekend and he got 3 points. I don't think we can reasonably expect that, very often. He got those 6 saves in the end, 2 of them right at the end, or 1 of them. It should have been 2 of them, by the way, because that's why it wasn't a Bowen assist. But that's another point. But actually, it's difficult, because if it isn't Pope, I mean, Newcastle, obviously, we probably need to talk about Newcastle maybe in the same discussion. I don't know if we move on to Newcastle in a minute, but they've obviously not been great so far, and that's surprising. And obviously, it's relieving as someone who doesn't own Pope and a Newcastle defence. Now they've got. I was listening to someone else about in the Wire before talking about the fixture tickers. I said the same thing a few weeks ago in terms of Newcastle fixtures, right up until 2021. They're top of the fixture ticker. But if you inspect that a bit more closely, I mean, what do you think? If I'm looking at Newcastle's fixtures, and again, this is not me saying that Pope is not really good. I mean, this is all in the context of Newcastle haven't been fantastic. Maybe they switch that around. When you actually look at the fixtures, I mean, you tell me in terms of what you really think about these fixtures individually. Nick Pope, sure you have, but when you really inspect them, because obviously the fixture ticker as well doesn't necessarily catch up to some of these fixtures might look like. Like, for example, Sunderland away, as a derby, and like what Sunderland are now and what we might expect in that game. But Newcastle have got Atletico Madrid. Is that Atletico Madrid? Someone like that tonight. or Bilbao, I can't remember. I'm getting mixed up again. But they've got that tonight, right? So they've got Brentford away on Sunday. How are you feeling about that in terms of clean sheet? Confident?
No, not really, no.
Just give me a no, not really, or a yes. Brentford away. Then you've got Man City at home.
No.
Then they've got Marseille away again in Europe. And then 4 days later, they've got Everton away.
No.
Okay. Then
maybe, but no.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Fair enough. Then they've got Spurs at home.
Well, actually, yes.
Yeah, that's
Spurs
okay.
absolutely hate going there.
Okay, right, yeah. And then they've got Burnley at home.
Yeah, fine.
Great. And then they've got Europe again. And then a few days later, they've got Sunderland away.
Yeah, no, not really. No, I see where this is going.
But then they've got EFL Cup quarter-final against Fulham. Then they've got Chelsea. Then they've got Man United away. Then they've got Burnley. Then they've got Palace and so on. So I'm just saying, all I'm saying is the confidence in Pogba's gone down slightly in terms of Newcastle. And actually, when you really look at those fixtures. So part of that discussion as well is, and you tell me, I don't know if there are other keepers that we can be really confident in, because that was part of the parcel for me, was having a keeper that you absolutely, I do still think Pope's going to be good because he gets so many saves and stuff. It's difficult. I just think it's gone down that 10, sort of 20%. And unless you tell me another keeper as part of that package, which is also why I feel pretty good as a Raya owner still.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think, again, I think we're in a situation, aren't we, for most people, that whatever you're locked into now. I should just say, though, we will get around to that game week 16 window, and if you really are feeling quite strong about it, you probably will have the capacity to change that. It is one of those ones where people might not think about it now, but I've got one AFCON player. I think you've got 3, haven't you? So, our situations, I spend a couple of transfers switching that around. It might be with 5 free transfers that I go back to. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it yet. But players with not much going on the AFCON side of things probably have that capacity. So it's quite an interesting one. I'm just going to say one quick thing, because I agree with you, by the way, on your points on Pope. I'm not going to do anything about it. Put it that way. Quite happy to kind of let it play out. There is that little awkward period of fixtures coming up at some point where that will be a bit more difficult. But just on the rare point, I do think it has been made a little bit binary. I think often these things are. The truth is of it, and I'm going to say something sort of a bit glib here, but every artist needs his patron. Even a kind of Michelangelo or any of these great painters, they still needed a ladder. They still needed the practical tools, etc. The truth is, your whole squad is a mix of these different things. It's quite plausible that by going rare, it enabled you to, let's say, Szoboszlai for some. I know it's a bit of a random one to pick on. He's the guy that really tears it up and changes everything, and you might not have been able to get there because you were stuck on Rice, who underwhelms and picks up sort of 4 to 6 points a game for a while because he's not his corners are being flicked on as opposed to put straight in the net, etc. It could easily happen, right? So I don't know. I think it has been made a bit of a binary thing, but of course that is good debate.
But this is the thing, and this is the thing as well, is with all that said, is we genuinely, and this is why it's not binary and yes or no, is because even in terms of predicting and really trying to foresee, I think in the next 10 weeks, it's very difficult to say which way it's going to go in terms of the most points. Again, because it is so complex. I didn't even mention Van Dijk in all of that. For example, people might not like the sound of that. Maybe they'll like it more because they just beat Real Madrid 1-0. But we'll talk about Liverpool in a second. But if Liverpool turn around, they've got an absurd set of fixtures coming up. So you had another defender in there, potentially someone like Van Dijk, again, who's an individual DEFCON monster, who you would very reasonably expect that a clean sheet isn't 6 points for him, it's 8 points, very reasonably, or something like that, especially if you take out bonus and goal threat. These guys are serious points generators, who, again, you have a space for if you have Raya in there instead of an Arsenal defender,
Case in point here, I'm not going to do. It's very unlikely that I do anything this week unless Ndiaye is injured, for example. But let's just come round to I'll just put an equation on that score past you. Let's say in game week 12, I decide to. I either could move the Ndiaye spot to someone like another one, like a Sar or Szoboszlai, and keep in the same spot, better fixtures and that kind of thing eradicates one of those picks. I would take the AFCON thing out of the equation, or you drop that down and you spend the money by having going an Anderson up to a Van Dijk, and then I've got a defensive. What is it? Timber, Gabriel, Senesi, and Van Dijk every week, which looks ridiculous, right? He's obviously going to pick up he's going to pick up points. It's just a case of how many, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's an interesting debate, but I'm glad that we had the discussion. I mean, actually, let's talk a little bit more about the long-term side of things. There has been a talk. You mentioned Van Dijk, so I think glad that you brought it up. They are looking a little bit better over the last couple. Did they keep a clean sheet against Aston Villa? They did, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah,
2-0 was
2-0.
and then obviously Real Madrid last night. Yeah, I think so. I think Rodgers hit the post, but I'm pretty sure they didn't score. So another question here with the and I know Pete, our good friend, is he on wildcard? He might be on wildcard. With the well-signaled fixture swing coming up in 12-13, which teams and players should we be aiming for over the next few weeks? So I can bring up fixture tickers and all the sorts of things here if you like, but what do you think? I mean, this is presumably one of the reasons why you're keen on rolling and having a little bit more thought space for 12 and 13.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't said I'm keen on rolling.
Have you not? I thought you were. Sorry, you
can always reasonably assume that. I'm always keen on rolling, but I've definitely got some decisions this week.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. So what were you saying in terms of which players are we thinking of?
Yeah, so let's go back to the ticker if we like here. But players that once it comes around to 12, 13, there's a little bit of a swing for various teams. Liverpool being the obvious one, Brighton again having a nice stretch there. Bournemouth coming back into nice fixtures. Who else? City coming up in Gameweek 13, probably you'd say have a nice run. Arsenal just carry on, don't they? So there's a few swings or changes to pattern a little bit. And I suppose Thiago starts to come into a slightly better run of fixtures as well for some people. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, let's just go a little bit one at a time. Obviously we will anyway, but you tell me in case we forget some teams. But I mean, straight away, blunt to the point is Liverpool. We've got to think about Liverpool for me. As an obvious one, they've obviously. I mean, what are their fixtures? So this week they've got City, and then I mean, I know everyone's probably looked at the fixtures, but it's still worth. I can't even see them on there.
I can read it out if you like. So, Forest, West Ham, Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, Spurs, Wolves, and Leeds.
They're at the top. Sorry, I see. I just couldn't see where Liverpool were. Yeah, so exactly ridiculous. So Forest, West Ham, Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton. Yeah, so credible run of fixtures, and it's one of them. I mean, Liverpool. It's pretty important the sort of changes. I mean, did you watch the game last night?
Yeah, not fully, no. But I've caught up on quite an extended highlights of that sort of thing. Yeah. I
mean, I was in the pub quiz, so I was kind of watching when I could. It didn't start until halftime, and then I was sort of keeping my eye on it. But it's pretty significant. I think what we're seeing in Liverpool at the moment. I mean, Bradley was his best performance of the season by far. That's a significant point. Relates to something I'm going to talk about in a second. He looked brilliant, which I'm glad. I'm really glad because I felt a bit sorry for him at the start of the season. I mean, he has such potential to be such a great fullback. I mean, he's a big guy, and he's strong and he's fast. McAllister looked a lot better. He's been crap all season, basically. To me, he's looked like he's much improved. He looks like he's actually acknowledged as well that he's not actually been very good. He looks almost quite annoyed at himself. It looks like he's gone the extra mile. He's almost putting loads of effort in now to try and recover his form, and he keeps celebrating every tackle and really getting the crowd going. I mean, that looks very positive to me. The defence in general looks better. I mean, Canate's been better the last few weeks, and obviously they've just kind of put Szoboszlai in his position. He's just been pretty ruthless. I mean, this is the thing with Liverpool. They've lost that many games. It's looking so kind of precarious and bad from their point of view in terms of winning the league. I mean, they can already see how ludicrous Arsenal are and what an unbelievable feat it would take. And these guys, they're Premier League champions and have spent a fortune. So they're not going to fuck about. They're not going to be like, oh, we'll, this is my opinion, and this is just kind of subjective view of it. But they're not going to be like, oh, yes, Szoboszlai has been really good, but can we make Wirtz work in that 10 sort of thing? I don't think we're going to see that. And I mean, Ekitike has been brilliant. I know Isak's injured, but it's not going to be easy for Isak to just get back in. He's going to really have to work it because Ekitike has been brilliant. And suddenly this team that they're playing looks far better. And I was going to say just Real Madrid then, but it's weird how we've got this sort of difference at the moment in terms of the European performances with a lot of teams and then in the league. But they obviously looked better against Villa as well. And I expect them to be a lot better, and they've got incredible fixtures. I mean, the thing for me, it was Szoboszlai. I think we're talking ridiculousness here. I was listening to The Wire before, and they were asking the question of like, is Szoboszlai an option? And I think that's the wrong question. I think that's behind. This is again just my subjective view, so doesn't matter whether anyone agrees with me or not. I'm just going to say what I think. I think that's the wrong question because I think he's way beyond the question of is he a pick to me. They said things like, nothing's really changed except now he's on a lot of the set pieces. I think that's wrong because I think what's changed is he looks like he's gone on a different level as a player. He was already a class player and had incredible potential, but to me, he looks like he's gone up a level, just really visibly. I mean, he was the best player on the pitch last night by some way against Real Madrid, against Jude Bellingham and Camavinga and however I pronounce his name. All these guys, and it wasn't particularly close in terms of who the best player on the pitch was. And he looked like that was comfortable to him. And I know that's just one performance, but I've seen this for the last few weeks from Szoboszlai. I mean, this is a guy who's been their best player, even when he's been out of position in right back. Every time he plays, he's the best player. He looks like a complete class above. He just looks so natural to me, but he also looks like the sort of guy who's a difference maker. Now, of course, I'm saying all this stuff. This can change. This could change. I'm talking about what I predict and what I think and what I'm seeing as a player. And I don't normally. I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions or is building a narrative just based on something that I think is short term. And it takes a lot. So it's hard for me to kind of verbalize what I think about him as a player. It's just what I see. I think for me, I mean, in terms of minutes as well, he's played 90 minutes every week. This is a guy who also looks like fitness-wise.
I didn't notice that. Yeah,
it's not even a question about taking Szoboszlai off at the moment because even whether he's right back or in midfield, he's just the best player. And I like that a lot. And he also just looks the fittest. He never looks tired, but he just looks like he's had that season. And he's now the Premier League is suddenly like Neo in the Matrix a bit again, where everything just suddenly looks a bit slow motion to him. He's seeing it differently. I mean, the positions he's getting into, and I know he's not typically been a kind of output merchant. He underperformed his XG last season. He didn't get a great amount of goals. He was criticised for that, and I think this is why they bought Wirtz in the first place. The manager criticised his actual output, but that seems to just have visibly changed. I mean, he's shooting on sight. He had 3 or 4 shots from distance yesterday, and I like the fact that all of them were going in the bottom corner. They were all going in. It's just that Courtois is a brilliant keeper. He had that chance for 1-on-1, which was an incredible save. I just think the way he sort of plays him, he presses so well from the front. It's a bit like a Bruno Fernandes in the sort of right position for me, where he looks ridiculous. And I'm actually really gutted that he's got City this week, and it's a dilemma for me because I still think he's a good pick this week. I think he's one of those, because to me at the moment, and again I'm shifting it in terms of what I think and my focus, but he's Liverpool's best player right now. And it's not just that he's their best player, he's their best attacker. I mean, Salah is still great. And don't get me wrong, if we're talking about captaincy, it changes a little bit because Salah's history and his calibre and stuff. But he's actually Liverpool's best attacker to me at the moment. And when you say that, this is the Premier League champions and a team that are ridiculous at attacking. He's their best attacker, I think. And because he's involved in everything. He's not deep, he's not pulling back. He looks like a proper difference maker to me at the moment. And so I think people are behind, and that's what's actually annoying me. And it is amazing, though, how quickly that shifts. Because, by the way, and I know you'll say what you're going to say in a second, but think about it. Last week, I picked him up in draft. How funny is that last week? We were in a draft league, me and Richie.
I can't see how that happened.
It was David, wasn't it? I was laughing. I was on the walk before laughing at David because he said, I think it was David, and he said, oh, yeah, I stupidly sold him because he was yellow flagged. But, a week ago, really, no one was really thinking about Szoboszlai. So it has changed a lot. I mean, I've been watching him as a player, but I just think, for me, as I say, Liverpool can't afford to mess around in terms of the players that they pick. So unless Szoboszlai drops off and his form suddenly disappears, and I'd be willing to make a bet that it isn't, because he's such a class player and you've seen it for so long in terms of what he can do and what he can put up. So I don't think that's going to change. It could, but I don't think it will. And I don't think Liverpool, again, they're not going to be. They don't have time to mess around and say, "Oh no, but can we make Wirtz work here?" Who, by the way, also was very good on the left. So people like Gakpo's minutes have dropped off a cliff. Wirtz isn't an option. Gakpo's not an option. Isak's not an option. But yeah, the significant thing was the whole team are 10 times better when Szoboszlai is in the 10. And Bradley obviously is crucial, because that was important to see last night, that he was brilliant last night against Real Madrid. And if he's doing that, then that takes Claire the right back spot. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Just a quick sort of addition to this point is what's the situation with Frimpong now? I haven't been following it. Is he?
Don't know.
The only reason I say that, it is helpful, isn't it, to know that they have two right-sided players, you know, to be able to play that role. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting. So I think you're probably there won't be any surprises, a little bit further along that kind of train of thought than I am. But I looked into it a little bit earlier, because obviously there's been his performances haven't gone unnoticed. His FPL performance is a different matter, obviously. But the thing that changed for me just watching the kind of the last two highlights, because I spent some time watching the Villa and the obviously the Madrid ones, is again that thing of looking for him. You know, everything was going through, was there, they were looking for him, etc. And I think that's the thing that caught my eye the most. I still think, from the little I have seen, obviously, as you say, understandably, and this is a thing, we he's not going to suddenly break the game. Almost all of his shots are quite distant, so there is that kind of factor as well. But you would have to expect that to change, because it was Real Madrid. You know, they are playing Nottingham Forest, Leeds, West Ham. I can't remember all of them. Oh, but they're right in front of me, aren't they? Sunderland and so on and so forth. So that is going to make a difference, and they need the person who's going to unlock. He's going to be spending a lot of time on the edge of the area. So, you know, you'd have to say, and all of the things that Trent was doing, you know, they rely quite heavily on him to do those things. So it's interesting, because positionally, I haven't kind of set in my head where I think he would be, etc. But in terms of the things that he's doing and the way that his teammates are clearly looking for him, there's a lot of positive signs there. What's interesting, actually, is that, you know, like this week's thumbnail, as you know, was all about these kind of midfielders that some would think are fairly defensive, etc. So in a sense, you separate Szoboszlai in this conversation. He's not part of that same set of people. He may be the same price, but he's a different category of player for you, because you don't expect him to go out to the right again.
Yeah. And of course, you know, again, this is me going to an extreme deliberately, because it's just about what I see at the moment and what I'd be willing to bet on. I'm not suggesting, you know, someone could be really objective and maybe hasn't really been watching the games and just say objectively, like, you know, could be right back, could be 10, but I just don't think that's the case right now, and that would have to change. Things would have to change quite a bit, I think, for that to happen.
I think the difference as well, I mean, personally, a couple of weeks ago, do you remember when I did have that all those transfers in knocking about? Gakpo was very much on my mind, and actually it's really interesting how fast that's changed. But he was always a player that the minutes were more likely to fluctuate, and his position was a little bit more under threat because of the movement of Wirtz across the team, whereas Szoboszlai doesn't feel like that's as problematic.
No.
So yeah, quite an interesting one to look for.
He looked like he knew he was the best player on the team. It was an incredible level of confidence. I mean, he's just a class guy. He's so good. He's so good. His free kicks are also incredible. But yeah, Wirtz had his best game for Liverpool last night in that position. He had like 3 or 4 key chances, you know, set up and kind of right on the top of the charts for the whole performance on the left, which is very interesting.
I think why it's quite interesting, by the way, and this is another reason why I'm almost definitely rolling this week, is is actually Szoboszlai and Sarr are two players that, for example, in that same sort of price bracket. I'm not saying you do anything with Sarr, but if you're someone with Ndiaye, for example, it's a little bit of a tempter, isn't it? Either one of those, because you've got Ndiaye after this week, Manchester United, Newcastle, and Bournemouth in the next 3, and then other side of Nottingham Forest. Admittedly, might not be there for the Arsenal game, but he then has Chelsea. So that's, as much as I love him, that's quite a hard keep, isn't it? Across that period of time, Man United, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Chelsea, in the space of 5 games, that's pretty hard work. They don't score many goals anyway.
Yeah, it's Ndiaye who's going for me.
Yeah, because personally, that's one of the reasons. I if he'd been injured, I probably would have gone to Sarr. I think it's fair to say, but on the other side of the international break, I think Van Dijk and Szoboszlai are two people that it would be quite an interesting conversation thereafter to kind of work out who would be the guy who got points, etc. The disadvantage, obviously, with a Van Dijk kind of manoeuvring is that you obviously are lumbered with a sort of Freddie Potts, who is great, obviously, but yeah, no, that's what would happen, potentially for someone who didn't have any money and that sort of thing. So.
The Szoboszlai thing is annoying, by the way, because I don't even normally do this, but I was just sort of having a little flick through like moves and what you think about what you might want to do, and how you can make it work. And I will be priced out tonight of Ndiaye to Szoboszlai and Anderson to Van Dijk.
Oh,
it's quite annoying, to say the least.
Hang on, is he going up tonight? Is he?
Yeah.
Jesus. What's he, 6'5"? 6'5", isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he must have been right towards the top of the scale already, so it's just so annoying that he's going up before playing City.
Oh yeah, that is annoying. Okay, well that probably has a knock-on effect for me as well.
It won't surprise me if he returns against City. It's just a really difficult one to justify that move. It's difficult.
Well, let's hope he blanks this week anyway. Just think I want the option. Yeah, because I've got 0.1 on Ndiaye. So, and Sarr's 6.6 and Szoboszlai is 6.5, isn't he? So that'd be quite an interesting one. Okay, right, we'll figure that out later. Where were we? I can't remember what we were talking about. Oh no, we
about teams and players, and
I feel like Liverpool there, we should move on from them perhaps, but
we'll move on from them. I mean, one to talk about more short term, I suppose, is Chelsea. And especially when you look at that fixture, if, for example, you're lining up or thinking about, and we talk about free hit a lot, of course, all these discussions are interconnected, so it's difficult. But especially if, for example, you're lining up free hit 13, which a lot of people are talking about, then that takes away the Arsenal fixture, and suddenly you're looking at Wolves at home, Burnley away, Leeds away, Bournemouth, Everton at home. But I'm very scared of Enzo now.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you mean short term?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I've come a little bit of a kind of circle on him. It's a difficult one because it's sort of a lot of things we've talked about previously when we talk about players like Rice and stuff. Enzo, actually, yeah, similarly, thinking about it now, has that thing where I'm seeing someone who, amongst other things, is just 90 minutes every game, a world-class midfielder like Declan Rice is, one who, to be fair, I mean, this is the biggest strength of Chelsea, is that level of performance from individuals. I mean, at the moment, it's from a few of them, to be honest. I mean, they've struggled in some games and stuff, but people like Raya, Reece James, and obviously Caicedo, but Caicedo especially, and Enzo especially. Again, these are guys, and talking about Enzo now, is that the performance level is so consistent in terms of how good they are. And Enzo is striking me more and more as, I know he's not a volume player, but again, sort of Bruno Fernandes type, where he's always looking to get into the goal scoring positions and to make a difference and to be the one who gets the goals or assists. And that's really significant because he's really good at it as well. I mean, he's fearless, he's good in the air, he's always on the back post. and he's got so much energy. I feel like I've got away with one. I mean, it's not like I thought he was a really bad pick. It's just that, for example, I prefer to have Sarr, and for example, I prefer to have Mbermo long term and that sort of thing. You know, there were players I prefer, which I still think is fine. And obviously, Enzo had some tougher fixtures before these ones. And then obviously the other thing is, what does it mean? I don't really know, because I expect, I need to check who's fit, but I expect to see Delap back in the number 9 this week. And then obviously João Pedro back in the 10. So that should put Enzo back a little bit in terms of not being in the 10. He should be in centre midfield. Yeah. With maybe, I presume, Reece James or something back at right back. And it's difficult because he's been sensational in the middle. But I presume that would put James back at right back and Enzo back in the middle. I still think Enzo does, make his way into the box and can be dangerous, but you would think it has to be less so if he's not the number 10. So that's pretty significant. And then obviously, in terms of even the short term, when does Palmer come back? Is it? I mean, they're aiming for Burnley, but that's sort of 2 weeks, and then whenever it is, loses penalties. It's a short term one, but again, especially if you're thinking about that free hit 13. Wolves at home, when they still haven't got a manager yet, it's not like they're going to have some big manager bounce. It's not like they hated the manager, Pereira, I don't think. I mean, I think he's a pretty good manager. No. I'm a little bit surprised about the sacking, but I'm not expecting any kind of a bounce. So Wolves at home on Saturday night, under the lights at 8 p.m, and you've not got any Chelsea players. I'm pretty terrified about that, to be honest. And I'm not a panicky player. I'm not going to bring him in because I'm scared. If I was going to bring him in, I'd bring him in because I do genuinely think he's a really good player and a really good pick. And you're talking about, at least, I mean, especially with free hit, you're talking about 4, 5, 6 weeks of a very, very solid player. The biggest thing against that is everything I've just said about Szoboszlai, and the fact that I think he's better longer term. But yeah, I mean, I'm worried. I mean, the other thing is, I already started to think about this about Enzo, and then look on FPL review, for example. And he's very close to the top player this week in the league. Very close to the top player in the league, close to Haaland. And I mean, even if you don't think it should be that high, you have to take notice when things like that. FPL review was that high. You need to take notice about the other things you might not be seeing, and why in particular, and things like the matchup and the other things in this behind the scenes that go into the model. That's really significant. So yeah, I what do you think? I mean, you're not bothered. You've not been thinking much about them, have you? But
no, but that should not be read into too much. I don't know. I think we all have these players that come along every season that, for whatever reason, it's just passed us by. And there hasn't been a single week where I thought, oh, that should be a player that I should target and bring in. But the truth of it is, there's nothing that you've said that's wrong. Of course, that's absolutely right. What it is I basically just have a favoritism for players where I know what to expect of them. But I think the odd thing is with Enzo is I feel like, okay, yeah, that's true, but maybe we do know what to expect of him, and I just haven't recognised that he is someone that can be relied on. So I think that's the problem. I think I've probably misjudged him, but I think, again, it's another one of those ones, wasn't it? If I had 3 or 4, maybe I would be doing something about it. But I just don't really feel that there's anything I can do. I can't get to him, by the way, unless I sold someone really good anyway. So nothing I can do.
It's Ndiaye, isn't it? It's Ndiaye, which
I can't get to him.
Oh right, okay. So you've got no money in the bank or something. I forgot. I thought
like a penny. Yeah, right, a penny. Yeah. I think he's presumably 6'8", 6'7", 6'8".
I think he is, 6'7". I think he's 6'7" or something like that.
Come on, chat, do your stuff. Is he 6'7", 6'8"? But there's not much I can say. I suppose I'd always expected, and this is the problem with resting on your laurels a bit, but for his role at some point to change because of the Delap returning, Palmer returning, and so on. But the truth is, he's just continued and performed. We've got away with one there for sure. I multiple got away with it last week. Obviously, getting good points, and Sarr and Enzo not doing anything, which is insane actually, because they really both could have double digited. So completely got away with one there, and that is just the game that we play, isn't it? There's always going to be someone who you can't cover.
It's just So it's one of them, we talk about those players individually. I mean, Ndiaye is such a difficult one because I never really, whilst he's so solid and he's an incredible footballer separate from FPL, you're never really excited, are you? You never really sort of think, because he just does so much work for the team. He doesn't get forward enough, doesn't shoot enough, doesn't be the difference maker enough. I was disappointed in him coming off, I have to be honest. I mean, just thought 20 years ago, there's no way a player would have come off like that. He got quote unquote a bit worried about his cramp. It was 60 minutes in and it was 1-1. You've got to win these games. I thought he was being a bit of a fanny coming off, to be honest. It's absolutely fine. I knew he was fine. You saw the tackle. He just got you got a little bit of a kick on the back of the leg, and then you felt like he had a bit of cramp. I was just a little bit surprised. And it's not good for minutes. You know what I mean? I don't like that. Someone like Saka who just limps around. I don't know if you're laughing at me or something in the chat. It's probably the chat.
No, I am laughing at you. I don't think I've heard anyone on the FPL podcast say fanny. He was. You know what? You're right, though. You're right.
He's right. He's a similar player to Saka. He's a similar player to Saka, isn't he? In the fact that he's very good defensively and tackling and getting forward, and all of those things mean that you get the shit kicked out of you a little bit. And so Saka's always limping and stuff. And sometimes, he does come off. It's the 85th minute and afterwards, and the team are winning. Otherwise, he's not coming off. So I'm probably being a bit harsh because I've only seen him do it once or twice. But it's not good for the minutes. You don't want a player coming off in 60 minutes. It was very annoying. But thankfully, he'd already scored a worldie, so let him off.
Our journey towards being cancelled has just taken another step towards towards glory. So no, that's excellent. I think we can actually. Do you know what? I should go back to our original question because goodness knows where we got to.
What teams should we target? I think another team, and I don't know if you want to say anything on this, but in terms of teams to target, and this is why I wouldn't. Because it's a big question. People think about players to get in the next few weeks and wildcards. It's a very relevant, very important question. But the other one is United. And I've not really been thinking about them because I've got 2 United midfielders.
Yeah, you can't do much else, yeah.
So talking about FPL review, for example, but playing around with it, very high up on all of the suggestions was like add Cunha to that mix in a week, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So
then you think, hang on a second. I need to go back and have a double check of the fixtures that Man United have got because obviously I'm not going to do that, by the way. But yeah, you talk about the fixtures and the tickers, and what is it? So we've got Spurs this weekend. We've got Spurs, Everton, Palace, West Ham, Wolves, Bournemouth, Villa, Newcastle, Wolves, Leeds, Burnley.
I have to say, I am very much looking forward to a sort of Cunha vanity purchase around AFCON. That kind of period where we might be down a few spots and we can just take a little bit of a wander into unknown territory, etc. But I know what you mean. Personally, it's going to be a struggle to reach it anyway. But especially around that kind of 14, 15, 16, I think it's a really interesting time, isn't it? Because obviously, I think the general prevailing wisdom is that people prefer Mbeumo. But when it gets to 14, if you have a choice between him and Cunha, because it might be a bit more open-ended and you might get a few more weeks out of it, potentially, if you need it. That's going to be quite an interesting one, isn't it? With Cunha.
Yeah. I'm obviously, it's so tough with double United of anyone attack because it's so hard to predict United, and it is still a bet. And a number of times in the last 3 or 4 years, it's done me in going back all the way to Rashford and Bruno double-ups for like 2 seasons ago that meant, not getting certain players. It's never worked. And it's difficult because you're still talking about Amorim, and he's been there for so long. So, the odds when someone's been there so long. 11ify did a very good article on this piece, and I spoke to him about it, and I said, it convinced me that he should be sacked. This was 4 or 5 weeks ago. And now all of a sudden he is turning it around a bit. And we've got very good players, and I do have a bit more faith in Amorim. And that game on the weekend, it was a step up in that we would normally have lost that game. So it wasn't great from us, but to actually get a draw was kind of, indicative of this change and sort of symbolised a slight change at the moment where we're able to come back into a game. And it took a bit of a worldie from Ahmad, but we played well. We could have won it in the end, but for a clearance off the line from Ahmad. But we're a very strange and interesting team at the moment. But we just look pretty good in attack. And if Bruno can keep getting forward, it changes everything. So, yeah, and anyway, so just too long an answer to the fact that we've said there Liverpool and Man United. Is there anyone else that you're thinking about?
Well, I don't know whether we got time to cover it today, but obviously City is an interesting one for people as well. I think it's more just it is a very challenging one because so the nice run for them starts at game week 13. Maybe people are going to be. I think the obvious one there is that we'll just pop on to a little bit more of a free hit look because I think as the weeks roll on, we'll just touch on it a bit more and a bit more. It might not be all in one week. It might be a sort of under continuous review, so to speak. But I think they are an obvious team where because they think I don't know whether it's mentioned here. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they're being the first kickoff in a number of weeks or thereabouts, the first kickoff, it does give you a little bit of an option for free hit. Because of course, you can guarantee that 8 starts or something like that. Got him on draft, by the way, as well. He's been an absolutely awful pick because obviously he's going to go to Anticon soon as well. And then we redraft. Anyway, God, it's dreadful.
Yeah.
So they are a team that I'd probably throw in that bucket at the moment. I just don't think that they have anyone reliable enough to.
No, exactly. And if you think about someone like Cherky looked sensational on the weekend.
Yeah,
He looks like he could be a class player, and he could be great. And I think that's a different type of bet to the one I said about Szoboszlai for me, because it is a bet, and that's fine. And I would bet that if he's fit and well, he's going to play. But it's a much less robust bet. It's much more shaky because we've seen Szoboszlai for a year and a half in terms of who he is, what he is, his qualities, how consistent he is, his injuries, and all that sort of stuff. And I can be much more confident that he's going to play, basically, regardless of where he's going to play, this sort of thing. Whereas with Cherky, it's much, the spread of probabilities is much wider in terms of where that could go. It could go anywhere because he could easily just not play or fall off a bit or suddenly get a bit unfit. Suddenly it catches up and all that sort of stuff. So it looks like a class player, but that's a much sort of bigger, riskier bet, but they've got amazing fixtures. And if he's playing like he did on the weekend, he's just going to play every week, isn't he? Because he was really good.
Yeah, so I like them as a part of a free hit. We'll come to talk about that in just a second. I have to raise this for you, Danny, because I thought it might make you laugh. Gareth in the chat has said, "Come on, Danny, don't be a fanny." And he's alongside Dan Burn has got an incredible header apparently.
Oh, yeah, we need to talk about Newcastle actually.
Yeah. Well, we can again. It doesn't exactly fit here, but
should we very quickly? I don't know. No, I just want to talk about Dan Burn actually. It's really quickly. It doesn't need to be a topic.
Yeah.
It's about Dan Burn. It was just an interesting interview that I read about Newcastle. I'm a little, and this is actually relevant to Pope actually. In the discussion we had before as well, it all fits in. And he said he was really pissed off Burn on the weekend, and you can tell he's a sort of leader type. And he said, basically, we've all been fucking fannies all season. That's basically what he said. He did. He did.
That's a direct quote.
Well, whatever he said, it was a swear word as we blocked out of the interview that I was reading. So I can't remember the exact context, but he was just saying that they've all been soft. So it's quite interesting because he said this was a real sort of turning point for us in terms of the hard conversations. And he said, if you think back to Newcastle a year ago, 2 years ago, we were rum. We were dirty bastards who just used to make it really horrible for people. That's what he was saying. He was so pissed off. He was swearing all the way through. And we need to make this one not for kids, don't we? This video. In fact, we always do that anyway. But so he was saying this is a joke. We wanted to progress as a team and not just be this team that beats everyone up. And we wanted to evolve as a team and become more of a kind of footballing team. We've tried to do that, but we've all been fannies. We've become too soft. And we said it can't go on like this. We should be making it really hard for people, beating them up, being rum. And you can imagine Dan Burn. He's a proper leader. You can imagine him in the changing room, 6'7" Dan Burn, who is not a slim guy either. The guy's hard as nails, and he's probably one of the hardest guys in the league. And he's torn into them. I just think it's quite interesting because it was literally, and I mean even how brutal Eddie Howe was in terms of substitutions. They're like, we're not messing about here. So I do expect a sort of a response from Newcastle, and we could see a change in their approach where it's back to a bit of that sort of. So I think that's probably pretty good, for defence owners. You'd hope. I mean, obviously, that doesn't mean just because they're going to try and do this. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. I just thought it was worth mentioning. And And obviously Dan Burns scored tonight. Apparently, you just said so. There you go.
Yeah. People were obviously a bit disappointed, weren't they, with them of the weekend? But you can't be up against Freddie Potts every week. The man is an absolute star there. No, but obviously still pleased about that. Free hit, then we'll just talk about it a little bit. I know we touched on it last week, but obviously things have changed because, of course, I'm sure if unless you live under a rock, you would have heard this, but no doubles are imminent. So the Crystal Palace fixture situation as a result of their cup clash and their fixture with Arsenal that will come up at some point over the Christmas period. Looks like there's no double. So personally, that was annoying because I was eyeing up a kind of triple captaincy one week, free hit another. That would have been quite nice. That would have been quite easy because I'd have had a double Saka or something like that. Would have been quite easy to do. So still got those chips in play. So triple captain is even further from the discussion. I don't know where that would be. And actually, coming back to this, because I know the free hit of 13 is a relatively interesting week for a lot of managers. And of course, that's double annoying, really, because if you free hit that week, so just to give some of the examples of where you could go if you free hit, you can go, if you don't want to if you want to spread out Arsenal and Chelsea and don't necessarily want to have all that, yes, you have that. I know that it's not an awful situation, but you could do that. Liverpool at West Ham, Man City against Leeds at home, and then you've got a few other interesting ones that you probably don't cover, like Brentford. You can have something from that against Burnley. You could have Aston Villa against Wolves and that sort of thing. But yeah, the difficulty there, of course, is that you can't triple captain that week. So it is because it is probably out of those one of the weeks that you think, well, actually, that's pretty interesting. Leeds at home, it's an early kickoff. Returns at either end of the pitch potentially, because I think Leeds are starting to look a little bit more, well, not beatable, because beatable is the wrong word. Obviously, they're already beatable, but a bit more like you could guarantee that being a good fixture for a decent team. So yeah, that's still the one that looks marginally better to others, but of course it is such a discussion, a difficult one. I am broadly, though, I don't know how you feel about this, Danny, I'm still broadly in favour of sort of holding it as my sort of rubber dinghy out of the aircraft potentially as well. So I don't mind. I think 13 a chip will probably get used. It's just a case of which one.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Where do we start? I mean, first of all, a lot of people have talked about, like, do we hold it and wait for the inevitable, quote unquote, Haaland rotation with City being first kickoff in a lot of games. So I just want to quickly say that, like, I don't like that. I don't think Haaland will get rotated. Why would Haaland get rotated? Pep doesn't rotate people willy-nilly. He rotates them if they look knackered or like, obviously for the fixture. So the fixture doesn't apply to Haaland. They've got to win every game. It's a bit like we said about Liverpool. They're not anywhere near. They're in a situation where they need to chase badly. Every game is a must-win game. Haaland didn't get rotated once last season in the league. He got injured and missed like 5 or 6 games with a knee injury or something. He played 90 minutes. He played 90 minutes of every league game until after Boxing Day last season. So it wasn't even close to getting rotated through Champions League and fixture congestion. And I mean, so I just don't see it. I mean, he is Man City. Everything's through him. They have to just score goals. Obviously, it's just like, looks like he did on the weekend. If the game's done, he might come off to protect him. If the game's not done, if the game's done and he's coming off to protect him, he's already scored a couple anyway. Blah, blah, blah. So I just don't. I mean, obviously, he might get rotated, but it's such a small chance for me that I certainly wouldn't be basing it off that. So that sort of rules that one out for me. Because I've seen a lot of people talk about that like it's a really serious strategy, and I just think that's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. I think where you want, if you do use it, I mean, if it does fit with plans very well. So, for example, and I may well not free hit in 13 now. I'm really not sure. But for example, if you're someone like me who did, let's say I did get Enzo, which I'm probably not going to do. And you're looking at, for example, that's where it fits very nicely with me, where Man United, I've got double United midfielders. Their worst fixture coming up is Palace away in 13. It's a stinker of a fixture. However, having said that, it is Palace they're away to Strasbourg, so not far, but on the 27th. So it is one where they've got a European game, and then 3 days later we play them. So that's nice. That's quite nice. That's pretty good as someone who owns double United if you're not going to free hit that week. I do expect Palace to be a bit tired. But it fits with that if you've got Enzo, for example, or a few Chelsea players, and you've got United players, and it's away at Palace, and they've got Arsenal. It fits. It fits really nicely to do a free hit. I mean, the other thing with the free hit is, especially this season, because of its potential to sort of go badly or whatever. But everyone that I see talk about the free hit, and again, this seems really obvious. Maybe it's silly for us to talk about. I don't know, but every time someone mentions the free hit, they say, "Oh, well, that means you've got to go Thiago, and you've got to go this, and you've got to go that," and they talk as if it means you've got to change your whole team.
Yeah, we said this last week. Yeah,
did we? And it's just like, I'm not seeing the free hit that way at all, actually, because he's so scared. I'm thinking, you could look at it, and there could be 3 or 4 key moves that you make, and not much else, because it's hard to justify. I mean, take this week for example, someone like my team, and I don't have, for example, Saka, Mateta, or Enzo, and so I'm probably not going to free hit this week, but that's pretty reasonable when you're talking about potentially their 3 incredible picks, and they're not really changing much else at all, to be honest.
No, I mean, because 13 is another one like that. I think I'd get to 13 if I was free hitting and still think I might still have Gabriel. I might still have Mateta, for example.
Exactly.
They're both not great fixtures on paper.
There's no might with Gabriel in any fixture.
No, it's just yeah. Okay, fair. But you see what I mean? It's not.
Yeah,
you don't just replace them for the sake of it. Yeah,
we've said all season. This is what the free hit this year is essentially about: people selling, good players with bad fixtures for worse players with better fixtures. Everyone who did that early in Gameweek 6 had a shocker. I mean, Gameweek 6 free hit was like a -20 average, from what I could see from a lot of people who played it, or more. It was a shocker. And all those players they brought in had on paper really good fixtures, but it was your Everton defenders and your whatever else it was. So it's so difficult. And then when people talk about captaincy, which I quite like, is like which weeks. I mean, I'll probably come to that actually, because I was having a look and sort of thinking back through in order. So for me, also, I looked at 15 as an option. I'm trying to remind myself of why, but again, it depends on the makeup of your team, obviously. But Palace have got Fulham away, which is not great. Arsenal have got Villa away, which is not great, but again, you're still going to have some kind of Arsenal picks. Maybe it depends who. Bournemouth have got Chelsea, so that's not a great fixture for either. Takes up a fair bit, and then you're still on a Haaland captain, but they've got Sunderland at home, so that is a game again where and is it the first kickoff? I'm not sure. Maybe it is, but that's obviously a game where you could look at that City lineup and get potentially 3 City players. Is it not wild about it, but it's a bit of a meh week. What else did I look at?
I mean,
week after.
Sorry.
No, go on. Well, we'll come to 17 if you were about to say that. Even 16 before that. City have got Palace away. So that's an obvious opportunity there in terms of if you wanted to bring someone in as captain. I mean, you're still going to own Haaland because he's so ridiculous, but Palace away is a shocking fixture. No two ways about it. And that week, I think Liverpool have got Brighton at home. And that's actually really nice, I think, in terms of captaincy. You mentioned Leeds, and I think Leeds and Brighton are quite similar in the sense that you're not expecting sort of even a Sunderland or even a Burnley where they can go 10 behind the ball and be pretty robust, or even a Forest or something like that. Leeds and Brighton and some of those sort of teams, you kind of expect them always to play. So when you think about captaincy opportunities, I really quite like that. But both Leeds and, as I say, we never know what Liverpool could be looking like by then, but Brighton for Liverpool is nice there. You'd still own Haaland. Arsenal have got Wolves at home that week. Obviously, that means your Palace players are playing against City. Bournemouth have got Man United away, which is not a great fixture. So there's a couple there. That's the week with captaincy. If you really want to look at captaincy, I think is Haaland when he's got Palace away. And the week before 15 is interesting for the reasons that I said. And then, as we've said, a lot of people are talking about 13. You mentioned 17, so we'll come to that in a second. But just to remind myself, 13 is... I think if you've got Chelsea players as well as United players, then it looks very appealing.
We went out for a minute there, Danny. I don't know if you're still with us.
Oh, did we? Sorry, chat. Am I still here?
Okay, well, I'll carry on. Hopefully, Danny will rejoin in just a second. But if oh, you're back. You're back. You are back.
Yeah, nothing's changed on my screen.
Oh, really? Okay, went wobbly for a minute there.
Oh, right.
Well, very excited. Just at the time, by the way, that a bunch of new people have just joined us. so the good. Actually,
Harry's in the chat, and Harry missed me defending him and all the Raya talk. So maybe you'll have to go back and look because we did say, Harry, that you maybe didn't get a chance to say some of the things that I wanted to say about Raya as well. So
there we are. Well, good evening, Harry. If you have just joined us, and a few others as well. Actually, this is a good time for me to do. I mean, of course, this is the best time of the stream to do the likes and subscribes plug after an hour and 50 minutes. Perfect time for you to do that if you haven't already. Very professional setup that we have here, so that's good. But yeah, no, I think some great points there. So please do. Hopefully, some ideas for you on the free hit there. I think it really is the other thing, of course, just the final point on the free hit, of course, is it's that conundrum, isn't it, of whether you. Do you know what? We've already said bad things on this pod tonight, but kind of blow your load. Game week 13, and then you haven't got that kind of lovely, calm, sort of high tog duvet cover with a blanket on top, with the hot water bottle and the soothing music and the sort of pillow spray, to make it smell like lavender if you're middle class. That sort of thing. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, it really does work. So make sure to get a good night's sleep. A bit of lavender spray. Game week 17, by the way, was the last one. Before I'll just interject here, was that did kind of make my eyes light up a bit for obvious reasons. So obviously some fixtures that are kind of not bankers for some teams there. So I would have, for example, my current team now. I might have something like Pope in goal against Chelsea, a bunch of Liverpool players possibly by then, that sort of thing. So it's not a persuasive argument, but there are lots of weeks to kind of look at. I think 13 probably is the one that will convince a lot of people, but I think lots to pick up on there.
Yeah, as you say, it is. You do feel that the further along we go, the safer you sort of feel to use it, don't you? Because you do feel like if you use it early, everyone else has still got it, and you rather than sitting in a nice warm bath like you with candles, and you sit in a bare room in just a wooden stool and just trying to get through the night. But
like one of the sort of Van Gogh paintings, during that era where he's basically he's got no money and he's sort of sheltering in a little hut, that sort of thing. You don't want that. No, we want to be in a nice, snuggly environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to go on to Rembrandt. I just want to say one thing, Rich. I know we've taken so long, and I won't talk about Rembrandt instead. But I wanted to shout out Late Riser because it's an important thing to sort of, most of us are quite sort of naturally fearful and pessimistic and worrying. You sort of want to be part of the crowd a little bit and think about when everyone else is using it and the risks and stuff. And it's always quite refreshing with LR because he's just naturally just ever the optimist, and he's obviously completely objectively right in what he says when he always counters those arguments to say, yeah, but you can just think of the opportunity instead for for players that you really like and weeks that you really like, and not have all of those worries that are essentially irrational and illogical for the most part in terms of what the free hit is and what it offers. So there is just a different way of thinking about it that I think everyone should sort of take that on board a little bit of like, when can you just play it? Sorry, Baker's just messaged to say Haaland and Foden have scored already. But yeah, so anyway, we'll move on.
Yeah, no, big moral victory for Phil Foden, known as the one at the back there somewhere. He's still knocking about. We're big believers here. I won't talk about these particular fixtures too much, Danny, because I think they will come up in our teams bit in just a minute. But one of the reasons why I wanted to flash this up is because I've got, probably like you, there's a few sort of third defender picks where it's a bit of a debate. And certainly I think there will be a few of us with Anderson, Rodon, who was it, Senesi, that sort of thing. And I immediately looked at that and I was a little bit surprised, to tell you the truth, because I mean, out of those three, I put Senesi straight in my team. But of course, according to this, Rodon and Anderson are more likely to get clean sheets because they're up against teams with not misfiring attacks, etc., but not particularly convincing ones. From memory, I still think that Aston Villa might be one of the highest teams for hit rates for Defcon, and what I mean by that is playing against them is good. So Senesi, it's quite a good fixture from that point of view if you really haven't got much to go on. That's one of my reasonings for putting him in the team at the moment, but not much in it. City, by the way, again, 1.99 at home. So a lot of people who were sort of dithering on prospect of Haaland captaincy might look at that and think, well, that's fine then.
Yeah, big numbers. I mean, I expect that now, based on what we've seen Liverpool do, to actually be closer.
Yeah,
to be honest, I think I expect Liverpool to. I think if I had to pick one to win that game, I'd probably pick Liverpool.
Oh.
That's probably
that's not as unreasonable as it initially.
I think it's very close. I don't know. It's very difficult. I mean, I think Liverpool are a calibre above City at the moment. City are in better form and they've got Haaland and they're at home and they are very good. But I think Liverpool still are actually just a small calibre ahead of City as a side. So, and then given that the momentum's with them a bit and they're playing very well, I don't know. That's going to be a very interesting game. I think there's going to be goals. I do think there's going to be goals. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I would really. I mean, I potentially don't have that dilemma because if I do roll, then I'll be playing both of the guys that you're talking about in terms of Bournemouth and Fulham, and I don't like it. You know, it's not great, but
no, it's pretty close. I don't think it's worth. It probably isn't worth applying a great deal of thought to it. To be honest with you, I'll save my thought space for other things. But yeah, it's a fairly tight one. Good. I'm going to go on to our teams, I think, because I think we've probably talked enough. So, it's me first. Yeah. I don't think there's an awful lot to discuss. I mean, to be honest with you, if Ndiaye had been out, I would have been very, very tempted to just go straight to Sarr because it feels like quite a straightforward move. It's one AFCONer for another, but there's no other AFCON problem in the team. But hopefully, because he blanked, I will still have at least the option on him for another week of the IB, maybe. And then it's him up against Szoboszlai if I want to do a move in that area of the pitch, or just wait and see what the IB does to the international break does to the team. So I think I'll probably have to roll this. I've only got one free transfer.
Yeah,
I don't love a couple of the picks there this week. You know, to be honest with you, I'm not expecting big things from Minte. I think Semenyo, in a way. Well, we'll talk about that another time. It's obviously fixtures do turn, so I think you probably do have to give it the chance at this point in time. But it's fine. Yeah, I'm happy enough with it. Obviously, it did well last week, and building up another transfer gives me a lot more flexibility, so I'll probably leave it. But what do you think?
Yeah, again, you know, it's nice to look at it because objectively, I just you can't disagree. I mean, I've got options to be aggressive, and I don't think I'll take them now. But a bit like me looking at my Gumar team, because I don't know if I said that at the time, but at the start, but you know, in my Gumar team, in fan team, which I don't pay enough attention to, I did just get Mateta last week and didn't shift around the midfield. I mean, it's slightly different there because Bumo's much more expensive on that game. So it's slightly different. But when it forces you into doing something different and you accept something like not moving to your midfield five or something that you want, or your Bumo, and it forces you to then you sort of step back and you see it differently. You go, but it's just really logical having Mateta and Sarr. And then obviously that team smashed it and my team would have got even more points this week if I'd done the same thing. Yeah. So again, I look at your team with no emotion attached and just think, yeah, I mean, you can't. Obviously it depends on something we'll talk about in a second in terms of Enzo's and so on. That's all there is. There is an option to be really aggressive, but otherwise, can't argue at all.
Yeah, I think it's probably just as well that I don't have a couple of extra pennies in the bank actually, because obviously.
Do you think you would roll definite if you did?
I probably still would roll, yeah. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's it's a bit like what you said earlier about the free hit, right? I mean, I think, to be honest with you, if I was on free hit this week, okay, the strikers would probably leave, but you could make a case for only keeping Saka from the midfield. Maybe you keep Bruno, but you'd change at least 3 of them, wouldn't you? Really? So you put Enzo in there, you put Sarr in there, and I don't know who else, but
this is one of the reasons why the free hit is too scary for me this week, because when I look at how many midfielders, it's like selling United midfielders. It's just to fit Saka in, for example. So say for me, if I was on free hit, to fit Saka in, I would have to not have at least one of, for example, Sarr, Semenyo, Bumo, Fernandes, or Enzo. There's just so many good midfielders. So yeah, I know, I can see what you're saying, but yeah. I mean, it's just sensible to roll, I think.
Yeah. Unless there's, I mean, to be honest with you, it's at a point where, even if there was an injury or Ndiaye wasn't ready, I think I'd still dither on it. To be honest with you, I mean, it would be easy to go to Sarr or so on, but would I rather have a week to think about it? Probably. So yeah, we'll really leave it there. Cool. On to you. Still hanging from that building. You must be tired. By the way, if this is on audio, that will make no sense to you, but don't worry.
Did you read yours out?
Shit, no, I didn't, and I've now sworn. My team, by the way, if anyone still cares, was and is Pope, Gabriel, Senesi, Timber, Minte, Semenyo, Fernandes, Ndiaye, and Saka, Mateta, and Haaland, captain, and on the bench, Dubravka, Anderson, Rodon, and Gui. Anyway, you don't care, but we'll move on.
Yeah, so my team at the moment is Raya in goal, Anderson, Lacroix, Gabriel, Bruno Fernandes, Sarr, Semenyo, Ndiaye, Burmo, Gyökeres, and Haaland, captain. Dubravka on the bench, Senesi, Goodmanson, and Gui. So weirdly, a lot of people might look at my team and go, why don't you just do Gyökeres to Mateta? And I'm sure that's going to punish me, but weirdly, it doesn't really work with any of my future plans, and I just don't really like it that much. I mean, obviously, it's scary this week, for sure. But I prefer the plans of keeping Gyökeres for now and hoping that he's okay, basically by next game week, if not the week after, because I think he's a really good pick. Obviously, Saka's great as well, but again, I've just got loads of solid midfielders. I'm going to kind of have to run with it and just hope that kind of works out okay, and hope that Bumo and Fernandes and specifically do well. So it's a bit scary. But yeah, in terms of the short-term aggressive move, I was pretty close this week, actually. Earlier in the week, I was fairly close to actually do just. I mean, it's not a move you would normally associate with me, by the way. But I was pretty close to just going quite aggressive and going Ndiaye to Enzo.
And is that gone now?
It's not going to say gone, but the biggest thing, as I say, that at that point I was a more sort of. Free hit 13 does make a fair bit of sense to my team, and then it would make more sense, and it's quite nice in that sense, because again, I'd have double United mid away at Palace, and have Enzo playing Arsenal, and not having to shift much around, and it looked quite nice. But I'm not sure yet about 13. I don't really want to book that in because I'm not sure yet. First of all, and as I say, the biggest thing is Szoboszlai, and what I've said about him, and how significantly I rate him as a pick. So that obviously changes it further. And I mean, I wouldn't do this move, but I genuinely, if you gave me a blank slate and just it didn't mean anything, and it was just a complete 1 week, go for it. Certainly when you add in the ownership and the fun, honestly, I'd have Szoboszlai over and Ndiaye this week.
Okay.
And I know that's suboptimal and all that sort of stuff. I just think it's Liverpool's best attacker at the moment and best player. In a game that I expect to be reasonably open. And Ndiaye is fantastic, and I'm happy with him. He's great. But it's just, it can be a bit frustrating, especially if he's coming off early and that sort of stuff. But anyway, happy with him. Obviously, he's a very good pick. And hopefully the fact that he scored helps him for the next week because, maybe get some to a bit more goal scoring form. And he still looks sensational and he could easily do well. So, yeah, so the Enzo move, but actually long term, that spot to me is at the moment is what I think it'll be Szoboszlai. So it's
I have to do my due diligence with you. Okay, nightmare scenario. The knock is a knock. He's out on. He's a doubt for the weekend. What do you do?
I'd bring Szoboszlai in.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So Enzo is toast.
Yeah, because again, the Enzo pick. If I was going to go there, I don't make one. I don't make picks for 1 week, or even two. It's just not. It's not on the table for me. It's not how I tend to play.
No, I like it. Yeah.
Unless they're absurd or unless I'm captaining them and that sort of stuff. The fact that an incredible player doesn't have a great fixture isn't actually that big a problem because you can still do very well, in that fixture. Never mind the fact that you then save a transfer and you've got the pick in place for the next week. So that's how much that's shifted, to be honest. And obviously,
it's going to be.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and obviously, there's always the eternal point of having two transfers, even if you think they're definitely planned in terms of at least one of them is planned, which can be a bit annoying, especially when I'm going to be priced out of future moves, by the way, as I've already said. I hope that Van Dijk drops to give me the option at least of getting Van Dijk. So I'm not saying I'm definitely getting Van Dijk. But I'm hoping he drops in price. He's been sold by 75,000 people and only bought by 5,000, and he's pretty close to dropping. It's just that
is he?
That needs to pick up. It's not going to, unless it picks up dramatically, it's not going to drop. But if he concedes a few against City and doesn't do anything, you never know. So yeah, basically, I'm probably just going to roll. I mean, people won't like that. I don't really like the Mateta move. Is a bit too short term for me. He's a great pick, but it doesn't really fit with the overall plans and where I want to move the team. It just doesn't really fit. It doesn't even fit with it if I want to get Saka in the future. It just sort of puts Mateta there. It doesn't get me enough money to do stuff. Yeah. So even if you wanted to make the double move to Saka or that kind of stuff, have those options, 2 transfers next week, focus more on getting Szoboszlai out of that position and then getting a different defender. It just takes all that away. So it's likely that I'm going to be with the trusty 4-5-1 with my favourite, with the formation that fingers crossed comes through for me.
You love 4-5-1, don't you? Even way ahead of this season. So that's true. I mean, also a final point about Szoboszlai is he has nice hair, which is always getting players with nice hair is an important plus tick in the column. So I think that's a useful one. And also a shout out to our good friend FPL Mikey. He doesn't need any excuse to get a Hungarian player into his team. I think he's married to his wife's Hungarian, so he won't need any excuse to get him in. I can see that happening. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going to do it. He only needs a little sort of flash of the ankles, and he'll be right.
But not in draft.
Not in draft. No. I still can't believe that. You won the FPL Last Resort Derby, didn't you, last week as well? So I didn't stand a chance realistically with Palmer and Aït-Nouri still honking the bench and that sort of thing. It's gone absolutely. Do you know the worst thing is? I think there's a redraft, and I'll lose 2 players. I'll lose Palmer and Aït-Nouri, who'll probably be amazing for the second half of the season. But
a redraft? Well, I don't even know what one of them is. You'll have to tell me what that is.
I can't remember what we've agreed, but in a lot of draft leagues, you can do stationed redrafts throughout the season. So most people do it halfway through.
I'm not going to lose any of my players. I don't.
You would lose all of your team.
No, I don't even think about what. That's outrageous. I feel like this is like that Sean Locke thing with the carrot in the box, and he's like, "Well, can't I just keep the box with the carrot in it?" Anyway, okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then it doesn't matter. But Hang on a minute. No, I'm not having that. So we'll talk about that off screen. But we're not that's cancelled. That's getting cancelled after the team I picked in draft.
I don't know. Well, the problem is it was all agreed at the start. Anyway, but it's fine.
No.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I mean,
No.
I'm last, so it doesn't make any difference to me either way. I need a rapid. I don't even know whether I want to redraft because I've got Palmer, so it's tricky. All right. Well, people aren't interested in that, are they? They don't care about that.
You've already left. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Yeah. All right. Well, we should probably leave it. And we will be around in the international break because we actually quite like them. I was going to say long chats, but a long chat with us is, I mean, goodness knows, that's very long. So I'm sure we'll have we always have an interesting, exciting guest during international break. So I will come back with information on that, but do keep an eye out for us, and we'll be around. If you make sure you do have a bit of a break. It is international break next week, isn't it? I haven't made it up.
I think so. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Let us know. Oh, have I completely miscalculated? I'm pretty sure.
No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know England are playing a couple of games, aren't they, and that sort of thing. So great. Okay. Well, yeah. Enjoy your international breaks. Enjoy your game weeks, and we hope it goes well. And hopefully, we've provided you some thought for over that period of time. Right. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Nice one. See you later.